stuff. I'm getting a decent turnout now. Yeah. Please silence your cell phone.
Hi, folks. We're going to get started in just a minute. If you want to speak tonight, please come up and grab a speaker card. That way we won't have to have you line up and go through all that madness. Right where this group is, right next to me. And at any time, you can go over and get a speaker card. If you all of a sudden find the courage or get angry enough, you can run up there and grab a card.
And if you don't want to speak but you have a question, you can write it down and we'll read it on your behalf, because I know not everyone's comfortable coming up.
We're just giving the last few minutes because we have a lot of people coming in now. I think the buses just got in.
The buzz.
Very, very bad group out there. Big, huge group. Causing a disturbance. Doing all the things that I never, ever do. I mean, they're out there. I mean, they're in force. Oh, my God. They're starting to come in. Be careful.
Oh, Alan. I love you.
There'll be a couple of things where only one of us should talk as a Brown Act, so we'll just watch when we're on a subcommittee with someone else.
Right.
Like downtown, like whatever.
Down. Okay. Hi.
And it's just a guidance,
How are you?
I think we can say.
There's coffee back there if you want it.
Okay.
You know where it
I
is.
think we're getting more people than last time now. Because we had received full, but not more, but we're almost at that again. So. We can't whisper at all. It's terrible.
You can. Yeah. Okay, where to start? All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and start. God, I hope we're going to have enough chairs.
And there are a bunch of chairs up front, so feel free.
Yeah, and don't be afraid of us. There's a whole line up front here. Come on up. Jamie, are we going to be okay, chair-wise? Okay. A lot of seats, okay. Thank you for coming up.
Okay.
Christopher, are you ready?
Okay.
So are all the no and yes people in the room now? You made it in? We wouldn't want to miss any of you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start. So first of all, welcome. And on behalf of Jeff and myself and the entire city council and our wonderful staff, we first want to thank you all for coming and doing this. It would be far more fun to be at home starting a cocktail right now. We know that. I promise you that it will be interesting. And I have to tell you, Jeff and I have said any number of times how much we're loving these forums, and we will continue to do them. How many of you did not come to the first forum? Oh, good bunch of you. Okay, so this was born out of simply wanting to create a more relaxed environment, to have a conversation with the community without the limits and restrictions and all the other issues that we have to deal with in the council chambers. So hold on one second, and we'll get to questions. So here are the ground rules for this, for the new ones. There are none. You can talk about anything you want. You can ask any question. You can comment on anything. We'd prefer that you keep it about the city of Palm Springs if you can. We don't put time limits on you, but I have to warn you that when the audience is done hearing you, they'll let you know. We've had that experience. So try to stay focused. If you, and the only other thing we ask is to be respectful of us and be respectful of each other. Everybody's opinions and viewpoints are equally important. We know there's some hot issues, you know, like Measure C, and we just ask you to express yourself and try to do it without a lot of anger because it intimidates other people. So, of course, this is Councilman Jeff Kors next to me. I am Mayor Pro Tem J.R. Roberts. We have our wonderful staff here, a lot of our staff tonight who are here and they're staying late just for you, just to do this. We learned a tremendous amount last time we did this and took it back to the whole council. Do we have other council members in the room?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. So other council members, because of the nature of the Brown Act, other council members can't really speak or respond to questions or comments. They can be in the audience with you. So if you have specific questions for them, we can't do it here. That's the only real limitation. And now I'm going to turn it over to the great Dr. David Reddy and our city manager who will introduce his staff.
Thank you. Ooh, thank you, JR. Councilman Kors, Councilman Roberts. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I just would like to introduce to you the members of our executive team who are here. We're out there working for you every day, and this is a group that does it. So first of all, as you know, Eddie Kotkin, our city attorney, Marcus Fuller, our assistant city manager, and Ms. Cairns, who is a special assistant to the city manager. They're up here at the head table. And what I would like to do now is, I've got several members of the team here. If you would just come up and I'll have you introduce yourself. So let's start with you. Facilities and maintenance.
Woohoo.
Hi, my name's Stacy Schaefer. I'm the Director of Maintenance and Facilities for the city. That includes fleet maintenance, street maintenance, downtown maintenance, park maintenance, and facilities maintenance. Anything related to maintenance, all under one roof.
Tom Garcia, Director of Engineering and City Engineer. We build stuff from roads to bridges to facilities that all get maintained.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Blaisdell. I'm the Public Information Officer. And I always say this at these forums, I feel like I have the best job at City Hall because I get to deal with the public and the media and let everyone know what's going on in Palm Springs through social media and press releases and our website. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to contact me. You can find me on our website, palmspringsca.gov.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Severin. I'm one of the 2 enforcement officials for our Vacation Rental Compliance Department. I have the pleasure of working with Boris, and we spend our time enforcing the ordinance, helping owners and agents comply, assisting new applicants, and educating the public. And please go to our website if you have any questions about what we do or what we've done the last year, psvacationrentalcompliance.com.
We just want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight, people who are for and against Measure C. Our office is a support to the community, so any information or questions you have about vacation rentals, you can find on our website, or feel free to contact Suzanne or myself. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, everyone. Kevin Alder, I'm the fire chief for the city of Palm Springs.
What is it that you do again, Kevin, down there?
Good evening. I'm Denise Goolsby. I'm the Office of Neighborhoods Manager, and I get to work with the 45 organized neighborhoods in Palm Springs and the planning department, code enforcement, engineer, and everything else. Anything that goes wrong or there's any issues, just come to me. I'll try and help you solve it with the help of this great staff. Thanks.
And I would just note Chief Reyes, that the police chief is on his way, is going to be a few minutes late, but he will be joining us. So, council members, I turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. So once again, for those of you who walked in a little bit later, we are going to try to use the speaker card program. So if you want to grab a speaker card and fill it out, if you want to ask a question but you don't want to be named with that question, we'll ask your question and then answer it. And so you can do that all evening. There's no limit. You can just run up there and grab a card, and they'll keep running them up to us. We do ask that you come up to the podium. If that's uncomfortable, just tell us, and we'll run a microphone out to you, okay? Jeff, we ready?
I think we're ready. Just for folks who don't go to council meetings or haven't watched them, at council meetings we can't really engage, so we can't answer questions. If it's not on the agenda, we can't talk about it. So when people come up in public comment and ask us things, we have to sit there sort of stone-faced. And so this is very different than that, and that's why we want to do this. So we really can interact. If we can't answer your question or someone on staff can't, we will make sure someone gets back to you. So really anything in the city is fair game. So thank you all for being here.
And I think we introduced Christopher
Yes.
already, didn't
And
we?
thank you, Christopher.
And
Really
thank you.
appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go right into it. So let me ask you a question. How many of you are here to talk about vacation rentals or Measure C? Raise your hands. Okay, it looks like a good half or more of the audience. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you when I read your card to tell me if that's what you're here for, simply so we can mix it up. We don't want to make it a one-issue event if we can help it. There are lots of people here to talk about other things, and we want to get their questions and ideas in as well. We know Measure C is the hot button issue right now, but we always designed these forums to talk about everything. And I just want to acknowledge that rock star, Chief Brian Reyes, is in the room. Hi, Chief.
Oh. And the 2 minutes is not a 2 minutes and you're cut off. It's to give you a sense of how long you've been talking, because we do have a lot of cards and we want to make sure everyone gets a chance, but we're not going to stop you at 2 minutes as would happen at a city council meeting.
Yeah. And we're going to try to get you out of here by 7:30, so we're going to move as quickly as we can, and here we go. Michael, let's start with Michael Vallejo.
Wow.
You're going to kick us off, Michael? All right.
Not Measure C, believe it or not.
Is that mic on?
Pull that close to you. That whole arm will come close.
Yes,
to you.
there we go.
Much better.
Not talking about Measure C, even though I'm sure that'll get covered later. So I actually just wanted to say how much I've noticed all the street work that's being done and the bike lanes and all that stuff, and I think it's great. So I'm sort of curious what the future plans for that are.
In terms of
Is
the
there more
infrastructure
coming?
upgrades,
What's the schedule?
the
Are there more
streets?
bike lanes coming? Infrastructure, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Marcus, you want to take that question?
Thanks.
Marcus Fuller, our Assistant City Manager. Or,
Certain-
or Marcus, hand it off to whoever you think.
Sure. Briefly, tomorrow night we'll be bringing before council the next year's pavement overlay project. Again, we've been bundling basically a $4 million project every year to repave city streets. And the council recently awarded the next phase of bike lane projects, which will include Camino Real, San Rafael, Laverne, and some other streets. So there's more bike lanes coming your way, as well as continued efforts for street pavement projects throughout the city. The council has been aggressive. In just the last 3 years, the city's invested over $22 million on street repair projects throughout the city. So that effort will continue for the foreseeable future.
And a big part of that are the Measure J dollars. They made an enormous difference in how many streets we could repave and really get ahead of that schedule. No city ever catches up on street paving, but I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, and two things. One, Marcus, so far we've paved, is it about 75 miles of roads? Is that?
We've gone through about a third of the city already.
Okay. And then in order, since I'm on the budget subcommittee, in order to finish getting our roads up to satisfactory and then maintaining them so we never fall behind is about $5 million a year forever. I mean, minus inflation will change that. So that is what the Budget Committee is probably will be recommending to council that we start just putting that $5 million each year so we don't get to the point where we have to spend so much money fixing roads as they're falling apart, because that will let us maintain our roads in good condition.
Terrific. Gary Soto? And the next speaker, just so you can be ready, will be Stuart Penn.
Good evening. I'm Gary Soto from Deep Well. I have a comment and a question. My comment is I support no on C in Deep Well. Question. I also serve as the chair, co-chair of our residents that are working on the district elections, which you just recently approved. So I'm asking Councilman Coors to give us an update, because it's a huge piece to our future and what we're looking at, if you can share that information with us.
Sure, happy to. And first, thank you, Gary, for your service on that. We have a great group of residents who are all volunteering their time and expertise as we look at compliance with the California Voter Rights Act. And really briefly, because it's a long subject and we're going to have many meetings on this, but the California Voting Rights Act pretty much is setting us in the direction of district elections to get as diverse representation, and the goal of the law is to make sure that protected minorities have the same power in their vote as everyone else. And right now what we're setting up is an outreach program so we can have forums like this in all different neighborhoods in the city to get input. And then we'll work with a demographer on drawing district maps, which ultimately the council will approve. If we don't move in that direction, we'll get sued, as we know, as other cities have, and no one's won one of these. And one of the values that we're looking at in drawing the maps, in addition to making sure we're in compliance with the Voting Rights Act, is to keep our neighborhoods, our organized neighborhoods, lines together, that we keep them intact in the same district. So there's a great effort. You'll be hearing a lot more about this, and there are about 10 residents who are working with us to pull off all the forums that we're going to do, and we're going to do them throughout the city, not just here in the Convention Center or City Hall.
And by the way, I see Lisa Middleton has walked into the room, Councilwoman Lisa Middleton. Welcome, Lisa. Is Christie or the mayor here? Maybe a little bit later. Okay, Stuart Penn, come on up. There you are. Hi, Stuart.
Thanks. As a realtor in Palm Springs, clients ask me a lot of questions about what's going on with this measure, and I'm not sure how to answer them. A couple of things they've asked me is, how did we get to this point of having a ballot where a lot of people that are impacted are not voters in Palm Springs? So this is going to impact them, and they're not going to be able to vote. How do I answer that?
Just so happens that Councilman Coors and I are the subcommittee for the city on vacation rentals. And about a year and a half ago or more, one of the first things we got involved with when we came on the council was the concern that vacation rentals had gotten to be too many and they were too noisy, and neighbors felt the impacts were starting to affect them. And we were hearing it a lot, and I know I can speak for Jeff on this because we talked about this many times. During our campaigns for council, we heard it a lot. People had concerns about it. So we jumped into it right away. And over the process of 8 months, I think we had 22 different meetings with stakeholders on how to see if we could solve this problem. And we looked at every possible option, everything that every other city had done, and of course we looked at a complete ban, which is what many resort cities like Palm Springs had done. And what we decided was, because of a number of factors, but most importantly, we were finding that cities, and we considered a ban, we were open to it. We had any number of conversations where we looked each other in the eye and said, can we ever make this work? And the thing that I will say turned me around on it was simply that bans don't work. That in pretty much every resort city like Palm Springs that had banned, they had just gone underground. And in any city like Hermosa or Santa Barbara or Carmel where they're banned, you can go on VRBO, Airbnb, Mr. B&B, and have your choice of hundreds of vacation rentals. And we found that the reason for that was cities didn't have the money that we have because of the permit fees to actually enforce, and they weren't going to waste their police time doing it. So how did we get to that? Regardless of how much we tried to find a middle ground, there were some that were just never going to be happy, and they felt that it wasn't going to work. And what we had done when we originated the first ordinance was we've said, let's just give it a try. Let's give it a year or two. If it doesn't work, we'll be the first in line to ban. Now, a lot has happened since then, but I specifically wanted to answer your question on how we got here. So some organized community members got together, got the signatures, and it's on the ballot. You want to add to that?
Sure. Well, just on the other part of your question, which is people who don't vote in Palm Springs, they may have interest in Palm Springs, but they don't get to vote here. This is a decision Palm Springs voters get to make, just like people around the world are impacted by who our president is, and they don't get to vote. It's just not as important an issue, by the way. But that's how it works, right? You get to vote where you're a registered voter and live. And
but in all fairness, we do have a unique situation where we've got people wanting to move to Palm Springs in the future as a permanent home, and they're using the vacation rentals to subsidize their purchase. So that's a different situation.
You know, absolutely, and they're allowed to participate in the election, as is anyone, through donations, reaching out to friends who live here, but only voters in any city get to vote on something that's on the ballot in that city.
Okay, so to bring us to a point where we needed to have a ballot, I remember was it January last year, there was a proposal, and I think you made it, that if we're going to go to the want a ballot, there was talk about making vacation rentals ADA compliant.
Yeah, well...
And what was the logic there?
Well,
I didn't know how to answer that.
What that wasn't ADA compliant. What it was that if we were going to have unlimited vacation rentals, as some people were advocating, with no restrictions, then certain size vacation rentals that were the same size as some of the small hotels in the city should have to have building and fire safety on the same terms. And in reality, that is now what's required in apartment buildings that have been grandfathered, and we now have the fire department doing an annual inspection to make sure that vacation rentals are safe.
We're not talking about multi-unit dwellings.
No, I'm just saying but we added to the ordinance a provision that there's an inspection of vacation rentals to make sure they're in compliance with fire and building safety. That did not happen before. And the reason that's important is because if you're renting a house long-term or you're living in the house, you know if you've taken the smoke detector battery out. But if you're coming the next weekend from someone else, you don't know what happened. You don't know if there's no smoke detector. You don't know if the pool's safe or if there are issues. So we do an annual inspection every year with our fire department now to make sure vacation rentals are safe. And we thought that was an important thing to add to the ordinance.
Yeah. And sorry, one last question, I know I've taken time here, is how do we explain why you're limiting the number of rentals per property? How does that impact the noise? What's the rationale there?
The rationale is that vacation rentals have only been allowed as an ancillary, additional use of someone's residence. It has never been a standalone business. So when people are renting out, in some cases, buying many homes and renting them out all the time and never using the home, that was becoming a business. And our city attorney had told us this does not fit with our laws, that we have to allow it and authorize it as an additional use of someone's residence. And if it can't be used all the time, it is going to impact the usage. It's going to lessen the impact on neighbors. So that's the rationale. So a lot of cities have gone down to 90 days. We decided to do it by contracts. I think we're the first city that's done that.
Oh, and we just wanted to build in some quiet time. We wanted to build in some guaranteed potential quiet time. And that was the goal. And we went back and forth many times on the number. We separated it by season. And again, the important thing to know about writing the first ordinance and the second ordinance was that we recognized that this was all new. We were cutting new territory, and we would, with our staff, continue, and we already have, and we plan to again, adjust this ordinance. And, pure fact, with no advocating, we've seen great success with the ordinance, purely through the reduction in calls to our enforcement division and a 90% reduction in calls to our police department. So, tonight we're going to try to stay very fact-based only, not get into one side or the other. So that was our goal, that was our plan. And we knew we were never going to make anyone happy or everyone happy, but I think what I've learned at least is that you probably did the right thing when both sides walk away from the table a little upset about it. And that was certainly the case here, and it continues to be. So, frankly, I'm glad it's coming to the ballot finally. Democracy is a beautiful thing, and this is the pinnacle of it. So we'll let the voters speak.
The one thing I would just add is that if Measure C does not pass, we, as we've said, after a year, we're very open to making changes to it. And changes that I think one side will like, the other won't, or vice versa. That's what we'll do. We'll get everyone together and we'll talk about what's working, what isn't, and how to improve it. If Measure C passes, we can't do anything.
That's just what I was going to say.
Yeah.
What happens if it passes?
It's the ordinance that came with the ballot measure, that the group that brought the ballot measure, they wrote an ordinance. We have to live with that ordinance. We cannot adjust it or change it whatsoever unless it goes to another vote of the people. And that was our original problem with it from the beginning. Why we originally didn't do that is we always wanted the ability to pull back and adjust it and make changes as we saw were necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. Fritz Koenig? Fritz? Here you come. Okay. So, and behind Fritz will be Roger Kruthamel. And by the way, I will most guaranteed destroy your name, so forgive me ahead of time. Hi, Fritz.
Hi. Well, I guess you shuffled the deck there.
Well, I just took them as I got them, so.
Okay. I just have some general comments. First of all, my understanding is that you are in charge of the meeting, not the audience members. So I hope that if the audience members do try to shout down people who are speaking, that you will take control of the meeting and try to stop them to do that.
We don't do that, do we? We don't shout down people. We're going to be respectful, right? Tell Fritz we're going to be respectful. See?
You don't have to do that.
Alan Worthy's telling you he's going to be respectful.
The other thing I'd
Fritz,
like
go
to
ahead.
say is that you made a statement, I think Mr. Kors made a statement that the members are not allowed to respond at city council meetings to statements from the public. That is explicitly not true according to the California Government Code. I'm trying to look up the exact section. But you have an attorney over here who has allowed you to say that over and over and over and over, and your previous attorney allowed you to say that same thing as well. You are allowed to make comments about what members say from the audience. You are allowed to ask questions of them. You are allowed explicitly to briefly respond. That is the code. That is the California Code. And instead of reading the memos that have been written by a bunch of attorneys trying to keep you from being sued, why don't you just go ahead and admit that you don't care if you get sued, and you can go ahead and act appropriately and respond to people. If you did that, I think you would be able to get a lot more understanding in the members and the public.
Thank you. And Fritz, before you go or after you go, we'll let our city attorney respond to that as well, certainly.
Also about anger is intimidating. I'm going to do my best not to express anger, but I am quite angry about what the city council has done, what I've watched being here for 3 years. And part of it, one of the things is, for instance, You have an administrative citation process which has numerous opportunities to issue a first citation of $5,000. That's intimidating. It's especially intimidating when such a citation can be issued through the administrative process. No court of law, no judges, no attorneys representing. And that decision made by government staff members is then assumed to be true at the appellate court, which means that whoever's trying to fight you on it has to prove that you are wrong. That is intimidating. That is highly intimidating. Your presence is intimidating. You have written a law that has gone after 2,000 domiciles in the city. It's highly intimidating.
Okay. You want us to respond to that?
No, I'm sorry. I have a medical emergency. I need to go. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. I would like, for the benefit of the audience on those two issues, I would like our city attorney, if he would, to respond to our ability as council members to respond to comments during open session and our restrictions due to the Brown Act, if you don't mind, Eddie.
Sure, it's actually a very important part of Palm Springs. I've been here about a year now, and I've watched the council work, and transparency is kind of watchword one. And the Brown Act, one of the major premises of our sunshine law here in California, is that if it's not on the agenda, it's not happening at the city council meeting. So with respect to these public comments that come up in the context of, I'm here and this is the statement I want to make on something that is really not a matter of substance noticed on the agenda, it really would be inconsistent, I think, with the letter and spirit of the Brown Act to have council members engaging in that type of dialogue. Now, council members, as often is the case, can give staff direction. You know, we'd like to talk about that. Would you bring that back and give us the opportunity? That happens all the time at Palm Springs City Council meetings. Also, during hearings, I think the speaker was kind of mixing apples and oranges. Council members do engage in active dialogue when there's a substantive hearing taking place and there's an applicant or people speaking in favor or against. Council members will pay very careful attention. I've seen a lot of very active discussions during those hearings. So again, mixing apples and oranges, but it would be inappropriate when something's not on the agenda, so that people in the community who are interested, who want to come out and learn about something, hear about something, maybe voice their own opinion, they wouldn't have the chance.
Well,
so that's why it doesn't happen.
It's a violation of the Brown Act, the state law, correct?
It's not correct to do that under state law. I said the letter and the spirit, and frankly, in this instance, the spirit's even more important.
Okay, thank you. With respect to the penalties of enforcement on vacation rental, one thing I can tell you is when the whole vacation rental thing first came up, the industry, of course, didn't want a lot of restriction. What the industry felt was that we needed to enforce better, and they hammered us for enforcement. They didn't want anywhere near the restrictions that they ended up getting, and they continued to hammer us for harsh enforcement. And I can tell you, we came up with some harsh enforcement, and I still think today it's very harsh. He's right. $5,000 first offense, lose your right to have a permit. Oh my God, that's really harsh, but it works. It actually works, and we have shut down 75 homes that violated that, and for other violations, not all on that one, but it works. It took that kind of enforcement to ferret it out. You want to add to that?
I would just add, because I think what he's talking about is people who were operating without a permit illegally. And one thing we heard consistently from not just the vacation rental companies, but individual owners who had permits was they felt they were being undercut by people who weren't paying taxes, that a lot of the complaints were coming to the houses that didn't tell anyone about what the noise ordinance was or anything else, and they were going to end up suffering because of the people who are operating illegally. So that is the reason that that went in as strongly as it did. But that wasn't enforced right away. It was given time with a postcard mailed out to every resident, a ton of media to make sure that people knew that they needed to have a permit. So that was the reason behind it, but I would agree, it is a very strong penalty and meant to be a very strong disincentive to people who were not playing by the same rules as people who were doing the right thing and following the law.
Okay, Roger, come on up.
You did a pretty good job on my name, Councilman. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
difficult name. You did quite well.
I can assure you that won't be for the rest of the evening.
Well,
thank you.
That's one of the harder names you're going to find, okay? My name is Roger Krauthamel. I am not a resident of Palm Springs, but I have been a commercial property investor here for more than 8 years. I probably pay like $120,000 in property taxes to the county of Riverside. That's on the commercial property, okay? And I don't ask much from the city or the county. I do have a vacation rental that I've had for 2.5 years with one of my business partners. We take great pride in the rental. We probably pay about $5,000 a year to the city of Palm Springs and the permit fees and the taxes. We want to comply with the regular rules and regulations. We try hard. We also pay about $7,000 a year in property taxes to the county of Riverside. In 2.5 years, I've probably had 28 reviews on my house. 27 of them a 5-star, one's a 4-star. I personally take great pride in putting a house together that my partner, my wife, and family put together. My daughter operates. And we get people come and say, well, what a nice house. Thank you for letting us use your house. Thank you for the experience of giving us a vacation in Palm Springs. I take more pleasure out of that than the money I get paid. Grant you, I can't do it without some compensation. But somebody called me sanctimonious in a letter to the Desert Sun, okay? Well, sanctimonious I may be. I like to provide a good product to people who want to come and enjoy the desert and like the experience of living in this house and come back the next year and the next year or the next Coachella Valley weekend, okay? And we get a lot of that. And I would be very distressed if we couldn't go along with that because it's a pride factor for me, satisfaction. Enough said.
Thank you, sir. David Friedman, I saw you over there somewhere. Okay. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Coors. Thanks for having us all out tonight. As you know, I was the co-chair of the Transparency Committee of our famous, perhaps infamous, Ethics, Transparency, and Governmental Reform Task Force, and just want to follow up with you on some open questions. Thank you for passing the ethics ordinance a couple of months ago. One of the provisions is to have a standing subcommittee. We had proposed, our work group along with the ethics had proposed independent commissions for both. That didn't happen. But if the standing committee, Councilmember Coors and I believe Councilmember Middleton, if you could sort of gather yourselves together and come up with a meeting time.
So we actually had a meeting time for next week, but the second phase of the public integrity ordinance is not quite final.
Okay.
So as the city attorney is hoping to have it to us next week, and we wanted to give everyone at least a week with it, but we will have a meeting in May. So just today we decided we needed to make sure we want to make sure everyone had it a week ahead of time before the meeting.
Okay.
But we will have a quarterly meeting, and at that meeting we'll come up with a standing time every quarter for it.
That'd be great. That to some degree goes to my next point is that, and you'll probably do this in the staff report, is to provide an update of, I guess, the 31 things that were recommended. So it'd be useful to have, okay, this has been done, this still needs to be done, this requires an ordinance, this could be done by staff. So that would be great. Two things that I've noticed that are already in the ordinance, one directly in the ordinance, is reporting of business interest. That's in the ordinance that was passed. I did a very quick look at materials on the agenda for tomorrow night. Some of them have business principle, some of them don't, and I would urge you to work with staff to get that clear. To give you an example, and even the ones that don't necessarily go up the food chain. So there is a something concerning Isabel with Grit, and it mentions that is that what the DPS 15C LLC, whatever the entity that Michael Brown has, it says that 91% of that entity is owned by Palm Springs Promenade, but then it does not go further up and say, well, who owns Palm Springs Promenade? I think we know the answer to that.
Too.
I think we know the answer to that, but it would be useful to have that. And then the final point, there is a training for the boards and commissions on May 14th, so I'm looking forward to that. One point that does not seem to be on the agenda, and if staff has some time, I would urge them to do this, to give us some training on the Public Records Act, and particularly the Supreme Court decision, which applies to city council members, but also boards and commissions. You are not allowed, or you should not be using your personal devices for city communications, and if you do, those personal devices are, subject to the Public Records Act, and I think we could all use some training on that. What we do, at least try to do with sustainability, is make sure that we copy our staff liaisons to make sure that way all messages among commissioners are on the city server as well. But that's sort of practical things for all of you and all of us as well. And that's it for the moment on transparency.
Great.
David, and yes to everything.
Yes, and I just want to take a minute because there were about 45 people who spent almost a year coming up with recommendations and doing research. David, co-chaired the Transparency Committee, now Councilmember Middleton, co-chaired the Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee, and I just want to thank all of them. I mean, it was such a volume of work, and one of the great things about our city is the amount of volunteer hours people put into boards and commissions and task force. So for all of you who do that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you, David, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, I see people standing in the back, and there are seats, lots of seats around if you care to sit. Oh boy, we're going to be here for a while. Okay, Esperanza Cantu. Esperanza, here she comes. And after Esperanza, who seems to be a rock star even before she gets up here, Hugh Glenn will be after Esperanza. Hi there.
Good evening. Thank you so much for
Welcome.
your time. I have lived here all of my life, and I have been greeting and welcoming tourists personally for 22 years. And our city looks amazing, and I just want to thank everybody. This is all of our home. So thank you. Please vote no on C.
Okay. Hi, Hugh.
Hi there. I would like to ask if the people who are sponsoring Measure C have met with you and discussed the economic impact that this could have to our city. I think what I look at is as fast as we've gone up, we can go down. And when I look at $170 million possible loss, have they got ideas on how to make it up?
Well, what I'm going to tell you is we'll let one of them respond to that, because I'm sure there are people here from that group, and we'll let them respond to that. To answer your question specifically, yes. We had 22 meetings originally, and most of the same people were involved then. So we've talked about issues of budget and impact, financial impact 100 times. So, but I think you have an excellent question. Without the money we're making from that, it'll have to come from somewhere. And if you're asking if they have ideas on that, we're going to ask them that question. How's that?
Yeah. Thanks.
You bet. Okay. I can hardly read this. I think it's Rob Marison. Rob? Marisk, sorry about that.
It's close enough.
I told you I'd butcher them.
Hey, so also.
And by the way, Patrick Veal will be after Rob.
Also, not a Palm Springs resident, but a homeowner and a vacation rental owner, and up in Racket Club area. It's beautiful. I want to thank everyone for what a beautiful city this really is.
Take your time.
Yeah. So I'm pretty angry about this whole thing, as you might guess. We've had our house for 4 years, a beautiful Alexander. We run a pretty tight ship. We've never had a complaint. We've never had a police call or anyone else called. And I get the ordinance thing. I don't like all of it, but I get it, and I think it's working. I think you're right. I think limiting the amount of revenue made by a home, it's what the borderline legal issue you were talking about, whether is it a business or is it a home? I get that too. I think the loss in revenue to the city was brutal in the first year from the TOT. My understanding, it was cut nearly in half. Yes? Well, let's not dwell on
Yeah,
it.
I think it actually is up year to year. So
It's up year to year.
Yeah.
Truly.
Boris or Suzanne, do you want to respond quickly to that? I'm getting yes, so it's up.
TOT is
It
up.
hasn't dropped at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
We've had a drop in permits. We've had a few 150 drop in permits, but the revenue is still up, correct?
Interesting.
Okay.
Maybe better collection. The economic impact to this city, to me, is a self-imposed shot to the head. As the previous speaker noted, it just seems like as fast as you go up, you can come down. You're going to lose $199 million based on that study that I read about. How are you going to make it up? You like your police department, you like your fire department, you like paving your roads? Ain't going to happen. Unless you're going to find it somewhere else, and it ain't going to be the sales tax, because nobody's going to be coming here. That's all I'm having to say.
Thank you. Okay. You know, part of me wanted to limit the applause, but we said no rules, so we're going to let you go. That's just for no rules? Okay. Sticking to your word? Well, yeah, yes, you can keep us to our word. Patrick? I can give you this mic.
Hello, my name is Patrick. I work here in Palm Springs. Christopher, you have to put it up. I work here in Palm Springs. And we have an issue in Palm Springs. When we go to an establishment, there's no closed caption on the TV. The ADA requires that. But my question partially is that does the city have to have an ordinance to say that we need closed captioning in order to enforce that law? Because I can't sue them now, thank you, Mr. Trump. So now what do I do? Do I go to the Human Rights Commission or whatever? I try to get that enforced and I get ignored. There's no closed captioning. Many bars don't have interpreters. Do I go to City Hall? Who do I go to?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we finally upgraded. Sorry. So we have upgraded our television station, which will now allow us to do closed captioning. And the money to do that is in the recommendation that Councilmember Middleton and I are making on the budget that will be voted on in June. So that is the plan, is to move forward with that. We both strongly are going to recommend the council implement closed captioning in this budget. Got it. I mean, we can only control legally, I believe, the city television station, but maybe our city attorney could weigh in on that.
Also, I'll let Eddie address that issue, but just to let you know, Thursday, this issue was brought up, and Thursday we actually have a meeting scheduled with some groups to deal with access in City Hall, and so we're going to sort of brainstorm the things that we're doing, what we could be doing, should be doing on access in all kinds of areas with regard to the city. We'll certainly listen to see if there's other opportunities that we can do even informally with businesses around the city, and we'll report back to council. So that meeting is scheduled, and I look forward to having that discussion. Eddie?
Sure.
Wait a minute. Can you repeat the
Christopher, do you need
Thursday forum, Dave?
Okay, David, could you roll that back for a minute, because Christopher had somebody talking to him.
Okay. So Christopher, it's at the meeting. There's a meeting set at 5:30 on Thursday.
At City Hall.
At City Hall, with members of the deaf community and organizations, and we're going to brainstorm ways that we can make City Hall more accessible. For one, and as Jeff indicated, the closed caption has been ordered and it should be ready soon. And then we'll also talk about some things we can maybe do informally with other businesses and areas of the city.
Well, First of all, dealing with disabilities in the community is obviously a matter of tremendous importance in this country, has been for a long time. That's why we have the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's a concept called preemption that applies with respect to smaller, lower level governments purporting to regulate in areas that the federal government has already spoken to. Sometimes there's also state preemption. That's not to say that nothing could be done on a legislative level, at the city level, specifically in response to the question. If the council gives direction, that's certainly something that my office can explore. I can certainly investigate what cities have already engaged in that type of an ordinance, but we would have to be very careful about not running afoul of the rules regarding preemption.
Thank you. That's a great response, and I will tell you that we are going to do that.
Yeah,
and
let's
we're a
do
city
that.
who does those things. And
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it today. Paul Hershenson. Hi, Paul.
Hi. And who follows me? Who
Oh,
follows
and
me? So
thank
they're
you.
ready too?
Mallory Morris will follow Paul.
Great. All I can say is wow. Last town hall meeting, I brought up some issues of illegal sales to minors of tobacco in the city, which is, according to the state's Stake Act, 3 times the national average of illegal sales to minors. And I want to applaud the council for recognizing the problem and also having the vision to look at a solution. By Councilman Coors saying that you're going to put together soon a special study group on the tobacco retailer's permit, which is county ordinance for anyone who doesn't know. It's a county ordinance. It's run by the county. There's no fiscal impact to the city, financially or in personnel. And Palm Springs is one of a very small group of cities who have not yet adopted it in Riverside County. In fact, our neighboring cities already have it. And I really like to thank you for listening last time and continuing to go forward with it. And anything that we can do to help, we really want to be there and help you. We've got the access to all the experts in the industry. And let us know what you need from us. And I just wanted to thank you once again for listening.
Great. And thank you for your work on this. And I believe we got a date today to deal with also just our smoking ordinance in general. As folks may not know, we scored a wonderful F from the American Lung Association for our non-smoking law, and really looking at that as part of it. I know you've been working on that. So this will get posted, but it is May 17th, Thursday, 3 o'clock in City Hall. So your timing is perfect. I just got done today. And I'm doing this with...
we're out of state at the time, and then we'll be heading to Noosa also for the city. So, but
you'll send us, you sent me plenty. So thank you for your work on this, and that's with Councilmember Holstage. So if folks have an interest, you can contact either me or Councilmember Holstage. And by the way, all our emails are on the city website under City Council, so you can always reach us directly through there.
Great. I'll get you some resources.
Thank you.
And
thank
Paul,
you.
thank you, and thank you for that goes out, of course, to our amazing staff. We sit up here and make a lot of noise.
Yes.
They go and do all the work.
They do, and
They
we
do.
want to help. So let us know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Mallory? And behind Mallory will be John Pavlak.
Hello. I bought my house in '02. Had a small residential neighborhood. I knew every one of my neighbors. There's 10 houses on my street on Davis. I knew every one of my neighbors. Now, there are 3 of us left. I walk my dogs in the morning, and I see a steady stream of strangers. Strangers. Walking the streets, smiling, happy to be there, fine. But it's too much. My whole neighborhood is gone. It's gone. I don't have neighbors. I don't have a neighborhood any longer. And I don't like living on Motel Row.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. John. And following John will be Tricia Jarovic.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Roberts and Councilman Coors and staff and Palm Springs residents. My name is John Pavlak. I'm a principal with Watermark Homes. We're the ones that did built Mountain Gate there, and I just wanted to thank you both for having this forum and asking for comments and so forth there. My wife and I and my daughter own a house there at Mountain Gate, and my wife's been coming here to Palm Springs for like 56 years there. So, but we appreciate you asking for comments and so forth there, and we've got a lot of hands-on experience with Mountain Gate. I've been a board member there, and it's worked out real well for the residences there. So, I wanted to thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you.
You bet. We're going to keep doing it. Tricia, come on up. There you are. And behind Tricia will be Robert Kruger.
Pardon me, but I have to wear these sunglasses because I forgot to bring my readers.
It's Palm Springs. It's a sunny life we live in here, you know. Could you all put your sunglasses on?
I came down to Palm Springs starting in the 60s. I went to spring break a few times, and I had friends that I'd come down and visit over a period of years. And actually, very regularly after 95, I had a friend that had come down almost every other week. So I really love Palm Springs. And when I came the first time after many years of not coming, I looked around and I thought, oh my God, I could feel a calmness that is just wonderful. The monochromatic mountains and the so beautiful, and not a lot of things on them, just all the brush, I guess you'd say. Anyway, it's very calming. And I was working in Los Angeles. I worked in architecture and design in Los Angeles for 35 years. I loved what I did, thank God. That's why I picked it. But it was very stressful driving from where I lived in the South Bay up to the thing, 12 hours a day, come back, start it all over the next day. But I loved it every day. But it built up a lot of stress. So when I came here, I was thinking about at that point, this was around 2000 something, that I wanted to settle. And what was I going to do? I was getting ready to retire in a few years. So when I saw how things were here, I just thought, this is it. I just feel like this is going to be good for my health. So I bought a house in 2002 in Racket Club, and actually Mallory is my neighbor. So on our street, we have 10 houses. Out of those 10 houses, 7 of them are rentals. The only other people that live in the neighborhood are 4 women. Me in one house, Mallory in another house, and 2 other women in another house. Everything else is wide open. At night, it's dark up there, and the wind blows. That's spooky enough. I've never been actually a fearful person, so I take it on all the time, but it's getting to the point now where our street is so filled with strangers and cars and all over the place and so forth. Not to mention I've been awakened at night by men crying like little girls because they've had too much to drink, or some guys who were sitting outside the house next door playing the gigantic chess game while I'm sleeping. At 4:30, I wake up into these men that I hear whispering. I don't know that. I was panic-stricken. And I'm not fearful, but it's just building all the time. And part of that, anyway, I moved out here I retired and I moved out here in 2008. As Mallory said, we had neighbors in all 10 homes. Within a period of time, they just started to drift away. For years, I've been very active. From the time I came down here in 2008, I was active. I'd already was a member at ModCom, Palm Springs ModCom, since 2002. I was a member, or I worked with the film festival on both the gala as well as in the office. I did a lot of things for Modernism Week, and then ultimately went on the board for 4 years. I worked at the Palm Springs Foundation, the Conservative Foundation, and so forth. So I'm very involved. I love where I live. And actually my kids are saying to me all the time, Mom, when are you coming back to the beach? I'm not coming back, kids. I love it here. They can't quite believe it, but really I love it here. It's very calming and it's good for me. So it was very difficult to see that so many people moved away, little at a time they started ebbing away, and now we have this situation with 10 houses on the block that 7 of them are vacant all the time. I mean, out of one of those, one of them are couples that come down every 2 weeks for 2 days. So I've never been fearful in my life. I am vulnerable and fearful right now. I'm getting older. I feel myself slowing down a little bit. I don't have a problem with that. That's natural. I'm enjoying the things that I do. But I am scared for the first time. I had my neighbor next door. One night I came home from neighbors and I walked in the door, went down, put something in the kitchen or whatever, and then I picked up my purse and put it deep into the house, because I always do that. That's just a habit. And as I got back in, I went to the, oh God. So as I got there, I went to my bedroom. And as I arrived there, I heard this loud voice and cursing and just laughing and goofing off. And I thought, oh God, they've got renters there today. So I thought, oh well. But then they just kept a little loud, and they were kind of a little rough. So I thought, well, I want them to know I'm here, so I don't have to say something at 10 o'clock. And if I do, they've at least known that I was here. So I went out in my yard, and I just walked out there and dragged my feet in the gravel. I heard, oh shit, man! They ran down the fence, jumped over the fence, and took off. And I realized that they had stolen the house, and I'd talked, well, long story, but a neighbor had confirmed to me that before that there were people jumping over the fence too. So, all right, so long story short, let me get to it. My pain is not your concern, I guess, but I am fearful. I called the police. I said, please stop by when you're done, because there was somebody, I'm sorry, I'm taking this if you have to drag me out of here, because I have got something to say. Anyway, so be quiet and I'll talk. It's my turn. You get yours next. Anyway, I ended up where I called the police because I said, please come out and see me before you leave, because I was concerned. And so the police never showed up. And then I ended up where the next, you're rude, so give me a chance, would you? Be quiet. So anyway, I called the next day. I went online, and there was a post from our neighborhood that one of the houses 2 blocks down from me was robbed that night, 2 hours after I called the police. The police did not have time to come out. They said they couldn't come out. And anyway, the next day I called them back and said, why didn't you come by? Did you come by? And he said, no, we didn't come out because we didn't get finished with something till 11:30 or whatever. Well, she was robbed at 8:30, so there was plenty of room. She was robbed, a woman who had lost her husband. They stole his medal and chain and so forth. While she and her daughter were watching TV, they had the audacity to go in and break in the house. So there's that one. Then 2 or 3, we'll say a week later, the same house again
we're gonna have to
was broken in again.
You've gone way longer than everyone else.
All right, what I want to know is what kind of police security do we have here? They say that they can't drive through the neighborhood. They will not take a black and white through the neighborhood.
Okay.
And
so let's get an answer. No,
I'm not finished.
Well, Chief, can you come up and so you can sort of explain? Because in the last year, residential burglaries down 47%, thanks to our great police department. So.
Yes, absolutely. Any call for service, if there's an explanation, if there's a delay, whether it be 1, 2, 3 hours, it's all recorded. The phone calls into the station can be reviewed, as well as the call history. So if someone's is not satisfied, doesn't have the proper response that they believe they should have, you can always call the watch commander and get a full printout of the actual events as they occurred and some of the reasons why there was a delay, and get an explanation of what else is going on throughout the city.
I heard and spoke to an officer for quite a while the next day, and I was very friendly because I really do appreciate our police here are friendly and nice, not so much in LA. Anyway, he said they didn't come out.
Why don't you guys get the address and you can get the printout for her?
He said
Brian?
he said that they did not have the budget. You have 5 people on the beat every day and maybe 8 on the weekend. I want to talk to you before I go, okay? All right. I am. I'm going.
Okay, thank you. Okay, who's next?
Okay, all right, guys. Look, we're back.
Right.
They care nothing about crime. Nothing.
Okay.
Crime out of control.
All right. One thing we are going to do is we're going to use the speaker card system. Robert, thank you.
Yeah, Robert Kruger.
And after Robert is Francine McDougal.
I have an easy question for you.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
When you receive a letter in the mail, snail mail, what happens to it?
Well, usually they're read if I get them.
Well, I wrote 2 letters to the mayor and every member of the city council in the last 5 months, and I'm still waiting for a response.
What's the issue or what's your concern? Tell us now.
I don't want to take up the people's time. I just want to know if you respond to every letter.
No, I'm going to tell you honestly, I don't respond to every single letter.
Okay, what's your criteria when you decide whether you do or not?
It depends on what the issue is. Sometimes I send that letter to a department head. If it's rude and nasty,
No.
I'll never respond to it. It depends on what the issue is. That's why I'm asking you what your concern is.
I wrote a letter in October asking the question of why this Palm Springs doesn't have a Christmas parade. And I researched that and submitted it to you guys for...
So everybody, please give him a chance. And I just quickly want to say, you are familiar with our holiday lighted parade, right?
That's not Christmas, that's a Hindu celebration.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And we don't recognize any one religion. We do a festival of lights, so everyone is included.
Yeah, we don't pick any particular religion out.
Okay, I sort of figured that to be the answer, but I was kind of insulted that you didn't write and tell me that.
Well, frankly, I don't recall getting that
Yeah,
letter, and I
either.
apologize. But I hope that answer it may not be what you like, but we do have the holiday parade trying to encompass all religions and beliefs.
Oh, I don't believe that. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Francine. And behind Francine, Jim Kingman. Or I think it's Kingman.
Hi, my question's about Measure C. If Measure C passes and after the 2-year sunset period, what will happen if houses advertise for 30 plus days but are taking rentals for less than that? I mean, I'm guessing it's going to become a bit of a Wild West situation. How will it be policed? How will things change? Because I know the ordinance will no longer come into effect, right?
Well, I'll start and you can jump in. So this is the dark area. We don't really know. So we've gone down this road of strong enforcement. We have an enforcement department that works 24 hours a day with, is it 9 people now? 9 people. All I can tell you is if Measure C does pass and we lose the permit, we lose the dollars, the permit fees, we're not going to be able to afford that department. We're going to have to close that department or bring it way, way down. And it will go back to where it was in the old days, which was the police department. The police department responds to calls as they can. And I know they have to prioritize their calls very specifically. If you'd like, I can have the chief respond to how they handle that. But we're just no longer going to have the enforcement that we once had. This is what I mentioned earlier. It's very difficult because this is why other cities have had such problems. They don't have the ability without the money to do the enforcement we do. So if things go underground, we're not going to have the people to chase it down. You'll have the opportunity to complain to the police, as we always have, but the enforcement will be very, very different. Would you like to hear from the police chief on how he would handle it?
I am no on Measure C, just so you know where I'm coming from. My point is, what's going to happen?
Well-
You know, when people, I mean, like you said, it's going to go underground. I'm not saying I'm going to be going underground, but I'm sure.
I hope not.
I'm sure many are. And how is that going to work? I mean, people will still be renting out vacation rentals, and you guys won't be getting the dollars anymore. What happens
and,
then?
You know, I think one of the things that we found in looking at the cities that have bans, and actually our terrific vacation rental team went and tried to rent short-term in some of those cities. Now, in the ads, they say 30 days or more. But in over half in those cities, they were able to rent for weekends or 7 days.
Right.
And so the reality is we go back to a situation where the police are responding. And even since we've had the new department, we had a hotline before then. The police, I think it was over 1,500 calls the year before, where they had to send, because you get a call, they have to send 2 officers and a car, patrol car, tied to vacation rentals. And that dropped down to 150, 90% decrease, which freed them up, obviously, to do other work. And that is one of, I think, 3 factors a police chief gives and why residential burglary dropped 47% year to year. He doesn't give the reason that he has an amazing staff and the department is doing such a terrific job. But that is one of the factors, is we actually now have vacation rental folks who can go out and handle it. So it can create those problems. It is a concern.
Okay, thank you.
Jim. There you are, sorry. And behind Jim will be Zaino Mizan.
Hi, my name is Jim Kingsland, and I do not envy you guys for being up there, being a part of this.
Bring the mic up.
Yeah.
I don't envy you for being up here and being a part of this, because this is crazy. I just wanted to say I'm no on C, because I've lived here for 9 years. I am surrounded by STRs. I have them on both sides of me. I have them diagonally from me. I have about 4 of them up the street. We have never had a problem. I've never had to call code enforcement. I don't know of anybody on our block that has had to. I'm sorry for you that you have to deal with that. Measure C is not going to change your problem. If anything, it's going to make it worse, because we won't have the money for police. And those houses, those 7 houses on your block, are all probably going to go up for sale, or a great deal of many of them. So you're going to have a street of empty houses, or houses that you don't know who is going to buy. So the problem is that a problem that may be lasting only a couple of days can last 30 days under this measure, from what I understand, which becomes a rental, which means you have to do an eviction. It can take between 6 months and a year to get a problem person out of there. The other part of my thing is I'm a face of somebody who will be directly affected by this. I own an insurance company here in town. We're one of the few that write vacation rentals, short-term vacation rentals. It's a very distinct market, and a great deal of my business will go away. It'll affect my spending power. It'll affect my hiring power. It'll affect my ability to expand my business in town. People don't think about the ancillary businesses and people that will be affected by this measure. And there's a lot of support for it tonight. I hope that support continues. If after the sunset or during the sunset, will the code enforcement department still be in force?
When we lose the money, we're going to lose most of the
When will the
department.
money end? Will that end after the first year?
I believe it ends at the end, right?
Yeah, it ends at the end. We won't be able to issue any more permits. So what we'll be doing is we'll be running through whatever money is left. The city can only collect enough money to run that department. We don't make a profit. So whatever that's in their account will start to dwindle away, and we'll start to have to
And
lay
from what
them
I
off.
understand, the revenue coming in from STRs is increasing that department, correct? We're increasing
Absolutely.
enforcement, we're increasing people that are there for enforcement, correct?
We have 2 full-time enforcement vehicles, officers, that literally go out 24 hours a day.
And when that goes away, it falls directly.
Oh, we have 4 now?
We have 4 now.
And when that goes away, it falls directly back onto the police.
Correct.
That can't get to you already. So what do you think is going to happen when we don't have the money for increased police or the code enforcement. People are not going to come here.
Guys, try
People
to
are not-
focus
they-
it. Try to focus it up here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you want to have conversations between you, we'll ask you to do
I'm
that
sorry.
in the hall so we can keep going. But otherwise, stay
Yeah,
focused
no,
with us.
I just, people are delusional if you think the economy is going to retain the same benefits that we have now. Families that rent single-family homes, that don't want to stay in hotels or motels, that can't afford to stay in motels and have multiple rooms when they have large families, those are the people we're going to lose because they're not coming back to this city. We're going to lose a lot. And my other question is, if Measure C does not pass, please, when do we have to go through this again, or will we?
Well, I mean, ultimately, in California, you have no control on people putting things on the ballot. So, you know, it's a matter of if you get enough money on any issue, you can always get on the ballot.
So the major people behind C now, who I understand most of them don't even live in this city. I believe one of them lives in Palm Desert, and I believe the other one lives at the Cody residence in Tamarisk, in Rancho Mirage. So people outside our city can continue to dictate how we run our city.
They can't vote if they don't live in the city, but they can put something on the ballot.
People need to understand who's behind these things.
Thank you. Zeno. Sorry, and I'm sorry for butchering your name.
Called Zeno Mizani. So anyway,
Yeah, I'll work on that one.
and he's my neighbor, he's right there.
So
anyway,
wait a minute, time's up. I think we can let him speak a little longer, can't we? Thank you.
Actually, I'm going to speak in a lighter note. I'm here since 2009. We built a new platform called madeinpalmsprings.com.
What is that again, Zeno?
It's madeinpalmsprings.com. It's a new platform so you can instantly engage with your customer. We built this for the businesses. I'm here, redeveloped and brand 300 businesses 2009. And one thing was destroying small businesses' reviews, bad reviews, and then find a way so businesses can instantly engage with their customers. With this platform, which is helping Google and Apple platform, so businesses that can engage with their customer instantly, they can post the events, the special offers, because right now customer wants leverage and they want value for the money. So with this platform, you can offer some kind of royalty programs, rewards, whatever you do to return the customer back to the businesses. So I'm asking you as a city council and City of Palm Springs to support this platform, which took us 6 years to develop. And so we already did that with Palm Canyon Drive. I ask everyone to download that app, by the way, so you can see that. And I have a little mini brochure for you so you can review it in later time. Thank you so much.
Okay, if you'll give that to our staff, that'll be great. Alan Worthy, you're up. Nope, I'm not kidding.
Oh my God. Heal. Are you going to be healed tonight?
We're going to see if you can do that.
A revival-style crowd, you might as well take the opportunity tonight, Mr. J.R. Roberts, and be healed. Now, it doesn't take a lot of logic to figure out that I am not interrupting myself during my measly 2 minutes to speak, does it? Do you want to be healed tonight, Mr. Roberts? It would be you.
I've been
lately,
waiting my whole life,
Don't interrupt me. It's you and lately the mayor committing these crimes, Brown Act, whatever Mr. Kotkin was covering earlier. You know, you really need to stop doing it. The last time was really ugly because you decided to chit-chat with Mr. Kors. It just doesn't look nice, okay? It's just rude. And that's all I said that night. Could I get your undivided attention? And Mayor speaks up that night, not you for a change. Okay? Let's move on, because it looks really bad, okay? Yeah, no logic. Just think about it. You got a bad review in the paper Saturday. Did you see it?
I missed that, but thank you.
Well, I've cut it out of the paper and taped it. I'm going to use it for my latest exhibit, for my amended. What's the problem? Yeah, the point is I never get to speak, so I'm like pinching myself. That's the point. The point is I'm tired of being interrupted. I'm tired of being assaulted. I'm tired of being screamed at. I'm tired of being ignored in your LGBT train wreck, okay? You mentioned the ADA earlier. The city's cared nothing about the ADA. Okay? And who's booing out there? I've been brutalized by corrupt cop number one. It's a miracle that I can even stand up. I cannot stand on my right ankle. Shortly, I will be scheduling surgery from John Doe throwing me on the floor and my ankle slamming against the bar and breaking it. He, nor my caregiver from hell, Renee Perla, I'm going to start to name them. Renee Perla, caregiver from hell, and his cousin, Cesar Cortez, who signed my Mercedes over to themselves. You think you've got problems? Wait till you have a caregiver from hell. You make sure they are signed, sealed, and delivered with an agency and not word of mouth in this town. Okay? The police care nothing about it. It's a huge problem, okay?
Hold on, Alan. Guys, can we take the time's up thing down? I don't know why that's coming up. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. This caregiver from hell problem. And I've got a list of cops I've turned over to Mr. Kotkin who knows it's a problem. They know it's a problem. And all the comments that they have made to me about it. So you have to decide what page you're going to get on. It cannot always be about permits and parties, okay? We've got a huge crime problem in this city, and we've got 5 cops, one in particular, Matt Beard, who made the most asinine remark to me just last week, Mr. Kotkin, which I'll take up with you, okay? A fraud report to the DA's office. I have been robbed blind, along with my family, robbed blind, okay? The city's known for it. They murder us. We've got at least 1 or 2 missing bodies, okay? Do you read the paper when the Desert Sun bothers to cover it? Do me one favor, Mr. Kors, lose that comment. This isn't the right time, which is what you said to me when I ran into you in City Hall. That's a Paul Lewin remark. And that remark is going to result in Mr. Punier spending, I don't know how much longer in the pen, because that's what I got then. And of course, what did he and the rest of them? They kept doing it. Because Mr. Lewin and the rest of those characters and Mr. Holland ignored everything I said. I did, and they got me thrown out, and now they're in trouble for obstruction of justice. A felony, Mr. Kors, and you're headed down the same road. Answer my demand, okay? And send me some food over Meals on Wheels as I'm recovering on the couch with my broken ankle. John Doe never arrested, okay? Get assaulted half as many times as I've been assaulted, okay? Before you start your mumbling and your bullshit.
Okay, so Richmond Curtis. Richmond?
And assaulted by that character that assigned himself by power of attorney. Assaulted me.
Good evening. I'll try and be brief.
Welcome, Richard.
Thanks. Richmond.
Richmond.
Oh, Richmond, I'm sorry.
I'm going to preface with 2 suggestions. I didn't know this was going to happen tonight until I saw a teaser on the news a half an hour before we started. I'm not on Facebook, and then so because I'm never going to be on Facebook, and it seems like that was a wise decision 10 years ago to never join. But information officer,
actually,
we could use more
Amy,
information that this is going to happen.
Amy, can you explain to folks, because there are also people on TV, how they can get the updates, the press releases, agendas?
And Richmond, this is a big issue for us. We are open to any and all ideas to reach the public.
But there is a way to get for the agendas of what you're interested in. So,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
If you go to our website, at the top of the website, it says e-notification, and you can sign up for news releases and agenda meetings, everything. Okay. We do a lot on social media, but for you, that may be the best way to do.
Okay, great. And Amy, maybe we can sort of highlight that a little bit. Oh, Amy, maybe we can highlight that a little bit more instead of e-notifications, but get updates, agendas, et cetera, so people see that as soon, maybe even a pop-up.
Sure.
Because I've heard that from other people. They don't know about that.
And people who aren't on social media. And if, again, any ideas you have to reach the public, we are always anxious to hear them.
I've been hoping that we would do this again because I was the last one and looking forward to it. And then surprised on the news tonight, I was like, oh my God, I got to get over there. Number 2, I think the clock would be better served if we started at 0 and just kept it going.
I
So
like
that people
that
who are
idea.
speaking could see just how long they're speaking.
That's a really good idea.
It's a good idea. Can we do that, guys? Can we just start it at 0 and do a count up?
Because people have a good point, but then when they go on about their work
don't
history and how long they've, all the things that have happened in their lives, not to the point. Those are two things I want to preface with. I do have two comments that are, one's about Measure C and vacation rentals. I have been here 17 years. I've been a renter the whole time. About 6 years ago, we rented a house. 3 years after we rented it, it was sold to a new owner. We had to leave. 6 years ago, when we looked online for rentals, long-term rentals, we had a choice of 50 or more. 3 years later, that was in 2013, I guess, 2012. 3 years later, we did the same search, and there were like 8. So this is one of the reasons somebody asked why we want to limit the number of vacation rentals. What would be the point of limiting vacation rentals? So that people who want to live here and want to rent a place to live have a place to rent. If there's nobody, if everybody's renting for vacation rentals, then where are people who want to live here full time going to rent? Because there's no stock. There's no long-term rental stock in the town. And I think that really needs, as you tinker with the ordinance, if Measure C doesn't pass, which we hope it doesn't, make sure that, people who want to live here long-term, with long-term leases, can find a place to live. Because as whole apartment buildings get turned over to vacation rentals, because there's so much more money in it, that's something we need to look into. And people who have vacation rentals, who are grandfathered, who have to lose them, you can always make money by renting to people long-term. That's always another option to people.
So just on that, one thing we did was we banned them in apartment buildings for folks who already had them, because people were converting apartment buildings into and advertising them as hotels, but not following the hotel rules. For people who already had them, they were grandfathered in for 2 years, and they can operate if they follow all the rules of a hotel after 2 years, which I think is January 1st of next year.
Good.
Because that was causing the problem you are referencing. So we did address that.
And you're going to see a lot of those apartments come back on the market.
Market.
This is something we recognize is a bad byproduct of vacation rentals, is losing longer-term rentals. Housing in general is very, very tight right now.
And it's expensive.
Everywhere in Southern California, there's a housing
And I'm not
shortage.
opposed to vacation rentals. I'm all for people to do what they want with their properties, but there has to be a balance.
Yep.
My other point is that in my residence here of 17 years, and I've heard a lot other friends of mine who've been long-term residents, in the last couple of years, there's been a big push for growth, for loosening up regulation, for loosening up codes, because I know Palm Springs used to be a very strict code. Like, we're Palm Springs, we're special, we don't, And the growth has been exponential. I think we're pushing the limits of what we can handle. I noticed it really, when the snowbirds are all here and we have an event like Modernism Week, there's no place in town, in the shopping centers, at the restaurants, there's no place to park. You can't get a table at a restaurant. You can't live as a resident in town when these big events are here, because every hotel room, every vacation rental is full with the snowbirds. You can't move. Traffic is getting bad in Palm Springs. When did we have traffic? I think we have to think about sensible growth. And I think our infrastructure is to the point of being stressed by the big events that we're having, without concern, without thinking about, we just want more hotel rooms. We've got 2 more hotels coming in the next, we got the Dream and the Virgin, and that's gonna be more people stressing our very small town. And I think that really needs to be considered by city council when you do it. And I've heard this from a lot of people. These people say, this isn't why I moved to Palm Springs, to be all these cars in the street, no place to park, no place to go to eat, because all the people who are here enjoying our town bring us money, but they make our town less enjoyable. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Richmond, I just want to say those are all very, very valid points. We are somewhat a victim of our own success. We want and we need success. We need those tourists. And at the same time, what you're saying is true. The city isn't blind to it. We're working to create tons of parking and things like that. But I think you're right. At some point, and I'm hoping very soon, I'm hoping this can come to council, that we talk about limits. Because we may have to. we were in such a hole 12 years ago,
I remember.
15 years ago. Now we're the flip side of it. I see local businesses here, and we worked so hard to get to where we are today. Is there such thing as too much success? And I think it's a very valid question. And
Just keep it sensible.
Yeah.
Not this rampant. I mean, we were in a hole. It was bad. It's getting better. It's nice to see the town lively and energetic with businesses making money. But when you have to wait in line with hundreds of people to get into a restaurant or find a parking space at Ralph's, it's, why would we ever live here?
Thank you.
Good points. Thank you. Bill Clement? I think it's Clement. Oh, okay. And after Bill will be Richard Noble.
Good evening. My name is Bill Clements.
Welcome.
This is Apayana, and I want to thank you for holding these forums. I was at your last forum, and I think it's a great part of democracy to have you out here and actually talking to us and listening to us in hopes. I have several comments. Number one, if I could get your home numbers. At 4:49 yesterday morning, I had a jet fly over my house. And I understand that they're going to start doing more middle of the night flights. And I know you have said, talk to your congressman. There are a couple of other committees that perhaps would be better than talking to the congressman. But the city needs to understand that the quality of life is not just downtown. The quality of life is also out in our areas. And the quality of life, we have one short-term rental, and there's never been a problem there. In fact, in my 21 years on Racket Club, there are only 3 of us that are still there from the first. So going out a block and a half, they change. But the noise is a major problem, and I don't like to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning anymore. Yeah. And I suppose if I had your number, you probably wouldn't like it either.
So just on that, if you're, because we have very limited ability with the FAA to control hours at the airport, which is why, and I've reached out to our congressman on some of the hours, but 4:49 is that a military flight? Because we don't have any flights that I'm aware of.
Is there any staff comment on that?
Yeah, that
no,
may have.
No, they are flying that flight.
Bill, let's let our city manager respond to that. If he wants
well,
to.
5 o'clock, that seems a bit early. I don't recall any actual commercial flights going out at 5. When we refer to the flights that we have in the evening, there's the 2 in the evening, the red eyes. Now it's limited and they're seasonal. But Councilmember Coors is correct. The FAA does not give us any ability to say yes or no. Actually, we don't have any control over that. What we have done in the past is we work with the airlines, we work with the congressman's office and the FAA to mitigate every noise measure that we can. So that being said, we don't have the ability to say no.
Thank you. I realize you don't have the ability to say no, but you should have some influence. You are elected officials. Yep. You do protect other interests in town very strongly, and we need that same protection. There have been articles in the newspaper saying there will be more late night. I have a 12 something or other after midnight that leaves, so then I can wake up there, and then 5 hours later I can wake up again.
So
I'm supposed to be outside the flight pattern. I did not get any of the airline amenities for making it quieter, but these jets are flying over my house.
Yeah. And so, David, can we see, especially those flights he's discussing, and what flight patterns we might be able to encourage, given there's not a lot of traffic at those hours, so how we can minimize noise?
Yes,
and check
we can
in
do that.
on that.
Some of the cities have also either instituted or negotiated to get a more rapid departure. Okay. Well, speaking of noise, I live on Racket Club, the freeway known as Racket Club. And I have tried over the years to talk to various people in the community and in your administration and have not been very successful. In fact, I've called both of you gentlemen, I've called the other members of the city council and the mayor, and other appointed officials without ever receiving a phone call back. I don't mean to tell you your business, but you are elected officials. You are responsible to us. I want a phone call back. I don't want to just refer to the head of that department, because probably in this case, I've already talked to the head of the department. I need somebody who can come in and discuss things that I'm interested in. Racket Club, as you know, is not a truck route. I thank the City Council and the Engineering Department for putting up signs saying that it is not saying, but not identifying the truck routes. They have been missing for many years. What we used to have is were also no trucks signs, trucks prohibited. And those still have not shown up. And that's what we need in order really to keep the trucks off the route. Between my sleeping hours, we have the tankers going by, the jet fuel tankers. We have the car carriers. Most of this is to the airport, and I have talked to the airport and the people who are in charge of their rentals and that, and I think we've had some success there. But it is a very difficult situation. If you look at the road on Racket Club, it is deteriorating very quickly. Your people were out 2 weeks ago repairing it. But there's no reason for us to have to live through that. We need the no truck signs or trucks prohibited signs so the police can be involved in keeping those people off. A private citizen has very little to do. I used to drive by those signs every day and they disappeared. So I don't know if the city took them down or who took them down. You don't need to go through this now, but I'm interested in what your plans are for Racket Club. Is it going to be 2-lane? Is it going to be at a lower speed? Or
Hey, Bill, while you're here, Marcus, is there any plan on Racket Club? Do we have a speed problem? Obviously, this gentleman feels that we do. Is there any update for him on Racket Club?
Sure. It's actually scheduled for some pavement maintenance in the next month or two. But it was evaluated for a road diet. It was contemplated, like some of the other streets, to reduce the lanes and provide bike lanes, but it serves an important purpose as a secondary arterial in that area of the city. So that that will not be happening on Racket Club. So you know, it is a secondary arterial. So we unfortunately can't arbitrarily set speed limits, but we will monitor the speeds with the police department as we do and do spot enforcement for traffic enforcement, and try to address your concerns in that manner.
And Marcus, can you speak to the state issue aspect of that?
Speed.
Yeah.
How speed limits are set.
Determining speed.
Sure. Let me help explain. So, in order for the police department to even issue citations, we have to follow state law in setting speed limits. And so those speed limits are set in accordance with state standards based on the prevailing speed of cars driving on that street. So decades and decades and decades of engineering research, and this is used in every state in the country, dictates that the 85th percentile, so 85 people driving a speed, is what we set the speed limit at. So you will have 15% of the traffic that's going to drive faster than what the speed limit is, and that's just driver behavior and psychology. And unfortunately, with any city code or state law, you have those people that are going to choose to ignore that law. And it's the same thing with speeding. And if you set speed limits too slow, it makes it actually less safe to drive on that street. And so the speed limits are set using, as I mentioned, engineering standards that have been established over decades and decades of employment throughout or deployment throughout every state in the country. So if we don't set speed limits in accordance with state law, that's determined to be a speed trap, and essentially any citations issued are void.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
As you realize, in Southern California, speed limits are advisory, and the speed limit is a minimum. And on our street, I've seen the fuel tankers race each other up the street. These are jet fuel tankers. They go by either, if they're on a truck route, they go by a middle school, and if they come over to Racket Club, They go by an elementary school. I would encourage you to look into the possibility of establishing a safety route for jet fuel tankers. There isn't any reason they can't come down Gene Autry, Vista Chino, and Farrell. There's no reason they have to go through a heavily housing area, commercial area, that type of thing. The volume of traffic on Rekatub, I think, would also address not only the history of the engineering, going back, it sounds like, to the Romans, but also the fact that that road has become overwhelmed by the amount of traffic and the speed of the traffic. There isn't a method, there should be a method to slow it down simply on a safety basis. As far as repaving it, please don't. Don't pave it. It's already a freeway. We don't want people going faster there. Let it deteriorate. They've caused it. Let it deteriorate. It's the only way we have. I've been trying to talk to the city for years. And we can't do anything. We can't do anything. We can't do anything. Let's see, what else? Very quickly. Curious, shut up. I'm speaking now. We've been talking about the freeways. I'm curious about if the wash is going to go through, if that road is going to go through from Gene Autry to Indian and Palm Canyon. You know, the road that was proposed along the wash.
Are you talking about CV Link?
No, road. Sunrise Way?
Oh, Sunrise. Mr. Fuller, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, the extension of what we call the Sunrise Parkway is planned as part of the Miralon project, and that's not going to be constructed for several more years as part of their second phase of their project.
And will that go down to Gene Autry, or is it going to just be Sunrise?
It will end at Indian. So it will go from Indian east over to Sunrise.
Thank you. What we have is one street north of the airport that is a through street, only one. I don't know if you looked at taking San Rafael through the old golf course. That would have given us 2 through streets. We are overwhelmed with traffic. You know, you probably don't see a lot of the accidents because they're very small, people running into walls and whatever, but we have huge traffics. We've had 3 deaths within a short period span of our street. So the other thing is I called you, called the administration about an ADA issue that I have, and that's never been addressed. It's never been referred back to me. No one seems to know anything about ADA or that it exists. Do you have an ADA office here?
We don't have an ADA office specifically, but we have a planning department which is very, very knowledgeable on ADA issues. Certainly.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I mean, we essentially have a department that oversees that. It's not separate, but our planning department handles that aspect.
And if you have a problem with the planning department, then how do you get to the city to talk to them about it, because they refer those things back to the planning.
So what is the ADA issue?
I'm not sure I want to go into the whole thing now, but basically when they put in the new ADA ramps, they also put in barriers on the property side. And so I have a 7.5-inch drop from my gravel walkway to the sidewalk.
Marcus can address that. Why don't you go ahead, Marcus?
So we've communicated about your issue, and I don't think we have to burden this setting with the issue that affects.
Well, you told me to sue. Your response was, we'll sue the city if you don't like it.
No, that's not what I said. So
yes, it is.
We constructed a curb ramp in front of his house in accordance with ADA standards, and we have a difference of opinion in what has occurred as a result of that project, and I'll address that privately with him.
But I received the information from the engineer, which he says tells him he has to put that ADA barrier there. And that ADA barrier is not on that. So,
Bill, I think you're getting a message here. We probably need to move on to someone else.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I think you're getting a message from the audience that it's time to move on to someone else. Okay?
I received this what basically is a no on Measure C. Information from the mail.
Bill, the audience isn't going to let us hear you.
I was a teacher. I've heard worse.
Bill,
than
we're
that.
going to have to move on. We're going to have to move on.
I'm asking you.
Bill, we're going to have to move on, okay?
That's not what you said when we began. Well, are you gentlemen going to return phone calls?
Bill?
And letters?
We can't do this all night, I'm sorry.
I'll wait for an answer. I have no compunction. Did you mail this out? Because this is an ethical question.
Bill, you've got to let other people speak now. You've been on for 21 minutes. You've got to let other people speak.
I came here the first night and I wasn't allowed to speak.
Well, you just made up for it, so you've got to let other people speak now. The audience is telling you.
Are you going to return phone calls?
Bill, please let other people speak.
Are you going to return phone calls? Are you going to return phone calls? Elected officials, will you return phone calls?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Richard Noble. Shh. All right, we're working on the card system. Bye, Alan. Hi, Richard.
So, hi, I'm Richard Noble. I'm a resident of Palm Springs, and I always come from a place of I feel this, and this is my experience. I never like to point fingers in group, okay? So I'm going to treat this like a group. Okay. This is coming from a comment that was made at the last forum that you had. Somebody said something to me, and I'm all like, I saw your eyes, Jeff. Your eyes sort of lit up. I wasn't sure what your reaction was, but I lit up. And so I want to read a little something first that I collected today and then go into that small discussion. We the people demand a price on local carbon pollution. We are all paying for carbon pollution. We're paying for it in dollars, in lives, in livelihoods, and in every way imaginable. And the truth is we simply cannot afford to pay for it any longer. As fossil fuel companies continue to fill our atmosphere with industrial carbon pollution, we experience longer droughts, deadlier storms, and more trips to the hospital. As we pay the price for their actions, these polluters rise to the top of the Fortune 500 list. The time has come to hold them accountable, to hold you accountable, our city, and myself as well, driving a gas-powered vehicle. Let's build a demand and support for landmark efforts at the EPA and for local, state, and federal efforts to regulate carbon pollution. And at this time, I'd like to have a joint letter from the City Council of Palm Springs to invite former Vice President Al Gore to have a climate summit here in Palm Springs in 2020.
I remember this. This was a great idea, actually.
I have applied to be a Climate Leaders Summit, go to his training, and they've accepted my application, so I'll be attending that. These will be our first steps forward in putting a price on carbon, especially in Palm Springs, and protect our future. And we all need to get behind them because the cost of it is too high. $4.5 billion lost in agricultural damage in China from drought. 12 billion euros of damage during floods in Germany. 650,000 homes destroyed by Hurricane Sandy. 220,000 people displaced by South Sudan floods in 2012. California wildfire damage estimated at $3 billion. Hurricane Maria faces insured losses of $72 billion. Today, you have the chance to make a difference, the chance to make your voice heard, the chance to help shape the legacy we leave to our younger generations. Most people don't know that carbon pollution from power plants is entirely unregulated. It's unchecked and it's costing us dearly. 5 years ago, the U.S. Congress had a historic opportunity to use market forces to limit carbon pollution. But after the legislation passed in the House of Representatives, it failed in the Senate. Since then, we've continued to witness the growing damage caused by unmitigated carbon pollution, from a drought that covered 60% of our nation to a superstorm that caused billions in damages, from wildfires spreading across our state in the west to severe flooding in cities all across our country. We've seen how extreme weather events are made worse when we fail to act. So at this point, I just want to say that I support closing Palm Canyon from Just Fabulous all the way to Bevmo and making it a promenade like they have in Santa Monica. So it's no vehicles, it's a promenade. And we need to do whatever we can to give incentive to anybody here drive an electric vehicle today or a hybrid? Congratulations, thank you. That deserves an applause. We need to build, I get so crazy at night. You know, I run the March for Science here, and you met our wolves. They were out a couple of weekends ago. Same wolves, in good health, very happy. And I spend hours Googling nanotechnology, green energy, wind turbines. Have you guys been to the wind turbine tour? It's beautiful, it's brilliant. And I think we need to focus everything that we do around being environmentally responsible with carbon, you know, and give people, with renters, do you have an electric vehicle? I don't know how to, I don't know where to push that.
So let me just throw out a couple things, if I can.
Sure.
So first, you know, Palm Springs, actually in a 3-2 vote, we actually have more of those than people, I think, sometimes realize, voted to join a lot of other cities when our president pulled out of the Paris Climate Treaty to enact policies to try and achieve the goals of that treaty despite the country pulling out. And we've done a number of things. Most new construction, residential construction, now is required to have solar, was one step we took. Tomorrow on the City Council agenda will be a discussion of expansion of electric vehicle chargers in all city-owned parking lots. So that's another thing we're doing. But the thing I think is most exciting is we've joined with Cathedral City in Palm Desert, and starting in August, you'll start getting notices in the mail. We will provide, through Edison's lines, we have to pay them for it, power to all the residents and businesses through a community choice aggregation plan, similar Marin and Sonoma, and many cities have them. And it's really exciting because everyone will automatically go into a plan that is less carbon polluting. They'll go into a plan that has more green energy and slightly lower costs. But what's really exciting is we've agreed that we're going to have an option to opt up, and for the exact same prices you're now paying for Edison, you will get 100% carbon-free electricity in the city of Palm Springs. So for the exact same money, we will be able to actually not have anyone here who chooses produce any carbon-polluting energy. So that's a really exciting thing. So it's one of the things that we're doing in that vein. I think there's, of course, more to come. And if you'll drop the letter, a draft letter off with staff, I think you have 2 council members who will ask for it to be on the next agenda tomorrow night.
Great.
For the one after that.
Love that. So
yeah,
we are moving forward. So but
you.
I really want to focus, especially in developers downtown. I spend hundreds of hours looking at Google, at what China is doing, what Japan is doing, and India, and different people that are around sacred geometry and nanotechnology and solar and wind and the beautiful designs that they're coming up. It's like a vision for the future. And as I see development here, I feel like we're sort of building the same thing over and over again. And I think we need to move out of a mindset and start putting things up on the big screen TV at City Council and everywhere all over the city so that we can educate and show people what innovators around the globe are doing. Because you want to make this the tourist destination of the universe, it can be, but we've got to
Some people already feel we're there.
We're a long ways from being there, but we can be there if we are really smart in our architecture and with green energy and moving forward and making it beautiful to look at as well as
Thank you, Richard.
to experience.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks so much. So we asked you, for those who didn't want to actually come up, we got 2 questions from the audience anonymously. When will the new downtown city park be built? And the second question is, is the Maryland statue returning to Palm Springs on a permanent basis? So great news about the park. Mr. Fuller or Dr. Reddy, do you want to respond to that? I think Mr. Fuller will probably have the best response. And you know, I always feel bad when we hit you with questions like this at council meetings because we think he has everything in his head. So here's your test for tonight.
That's right. The current schedule is to have the construction drawings done by the end of the year, so that would have construction in 2019. They anticipate a year construction period, so by the end of 2019, we hope to have the park finished.
So about a year and a half from now, and we have been on schedule in terms of design, and we had many public forums, and I will tell you that in my entire time of public service, it was the one thing that we had unanimous agreement on from the community. No one yet has talked badly about the downtown park.
Do you want me to answer too?
I'm sorry? Oh, it's in the new downtown development directly in front of the Art Museum. And if you go to the city website, it's the first thing you will see is the rendering for the new downtown park.
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, you want to respond to so the second question is the Maryland statue.
So
coming.
Maryland is in a box in various parts, and if you were here when she was put together, it was really cool to watch that process. So right now, PS Resorts is working to raise the money to actually own Maryland, so she'll permanently be in the new park. We're looking for temporary space, maybe the long-term space, to have her temporarily, because that will help, of course, raise funds to cover the rest. But PS Resorts is committed to raising the funds to have her back permanently.
Jeff, how much is she, and where are we financially with it?
I think they have one $200,000 sponsor, and I think they need about another $600,000, and have ideas on where that's going to come from. There is not yet, and that is something I'll talk to PS Resorts about. Yeah, because I think people will support, and that's why they wanted her here temporarily, but there's no reason we shouldn't have that up and running. So I'm the liaison to PS Resorts, so I'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Is Amy still here? I mean, maybe we can do something on the city side as well, because
yeah,
I think that's an excellent question.
That's a good idea.
Okay, our next speaker is Wesley Ross. I know we're starting to lose people. Hi, Wesley, welcome.
Good evening.
And after Wesley is Stephanie Austin.
Good evening. My name is Wesley Ross. I have been a resident of Palm Springs for over 47 years. My question, is there any progress in establishing a long-term mental health facility in the Coachella Valley for mental health patients who need long-term health care in a controlled environment? As you know, I have been before you on this issue under different venues. Now, the thing is, what I don't understand is that there seems to be very, very little public interest or input into an issue which impacts fire departments, police departments, homeless, etc. So much for that issue. Measure C. I have been here over 47 years. When I was here, R1 neighborhoods were neighborhoods. We knew each other. Hotels were hotels. We had tourists, many, many tourists, and we were a destination, a worldwide destination city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jeff, you want to take the question?
Sure. So we used to have Roy's as an emergency overnight shelter for homeless individuals. And when the county decided to close that, they did so to convert it into what will be approximately 150 inpatient mental health beds, which are desperately needed. You're extremely on point here because so many of the hospitals have closed down having mental health beds because they don't get as much reimbursement for those as they do for surgery and other things. So the county is taking that facility to create inpatient mental health beds. And I don't know if we have an update on their timing, but you know, last year they said about June, but I know they're not on schedule for that. So we can get an update on that. Yeah.
The problem with that location, that is the rear end of the world. There's no transportation out there. It's constantly windy. You know, anybody who's going to transgress from Palm Springs to that facility will either have to be picked by a van or something which costs a lot of money, or they're going to have to go through very bad neighborhoods, or they're going to have to be in windstorms. I mean, it's just...
So the question was about the area, and one of the problems with having a shelter there was the transportation. An inpatient facility is going to be a better use for that space, and it's a county-owned building because people aren't coming and going every day. It's for inpatient treatment. But someone will need a referral from a doctor and will get transported there. there are some now mental health day facilities that are open just under 24 hours, because they can't be 24 hours, where people get evaluated and then be able to transport them. Our police department, and we have community mental health crisis teams on the ground, have found it very challenging because there is no place to bring people for inpatient mental health, and we can't require hospitals to provide that. So the county is stepping up to do this, and it may not be the ideal location, but it will serve a very important function. And Racket Club in the new McLean Center, there is an urgent care. They're open 23 and a half hours a day, where people can go as well. So thank you. And they will refer people to inpatient. So this will open up a lot of beds we don't currently have in the Coachella Valley.
It's a tough issue, and it's hard to get support in the valley in general for that. Is Stephanie Austin still here? Stephanie? Yeah, we've got a few more questions from the audience. When will the council look to the interest of the full-time residents before tourists is one of the questions. Why should the residents have to act as first call or police the STRs and have our home life disturbed by hotel guests at late evening hours? And the third question is, when will R1 zoning be enforced? Which one would you like to take, Councilman Kors?
I'll start with the first one. So I think, at least for me, and I know as we went through this process, is we are looking at it through the lens of what is best for our city and our residents. And let's keep in mind we're a city of 45,000 people that now has an international airport with nonstop flights to 10 cities, a world-class museum, and a big increase in restaurants and retail and events and the type of talent that comes into the Annenberg Theater that wouldn't exist in a town of 45,000 people on its own. And so while I appreciate that some people would rather not have tourists come through vacation rentals, and it's probably over 400,000 a year who use vacation rentals to spend time in Palm Springs, and many of us started that way and bought homes and became full-time residents. But it does result in an economy that I believe benefits our residents. So I understand both sides of this, but I don't think it's pitting one against the other. If we didn't think this benefited residents through many means, I don't think we'd have vacation rentals. And so I think that's where the council is coming from. I think we see this as something that benefits our residents.
And I'll answer the second question. Why should the residents have to act as first call or police the STRs and have our home life disturbed by hotel guests at late evening hours? You know, all I can say to that is, you know, when we live in a city, when we live in neighborhoods, and let's just take vacation renters out of it for a minute. When our neighbors do things that annoy us, or they're too loud, or there are other disturbances that are outside of the realm, there's no way for the police in that case, or in the case of vacation rentals, for the city to know. The reality is, in our neighborhoods, it's up to us to call the departments that need to respond to problems that exist in neighborhoods. Frankly, vacation rentals are no different than that. So whether it's your neighbor throwing a big party, or whether it's a long-term renter throwing a big party, or whether it's a short-term renter, it's all the same. I can tell you one thing, which is pure fact. It is a lot easier for our vacation rental compliance team to come out and solve a vacation rental problem than it will be for the police to come out and shut down a loud party from a neighbor. And that's because we're now fully staffed for that. And in the old days, our police had to make choices. If they got a call because of a loud party, they had to make a choice on which calls they were going to go out to. And I think we would all agree that we want them to make choices that are about our safety over annoyance. And that's why I'm personally very happy that we have a vacation rental compliance department. So I don't know if that person is here, but I hope that answered the question.
We answered that one.
And the last one, I think we already answered, is when will R1 zoning be enforced? And I think we answered that earlier. Okay, our next speaker is Carmela Cella. Is she still here? Hi, Carmela, way in the back. Thank you all for staying. We're going to just take a few more questions, and if we answered a lot, and if we missed you, we apologize, but I promise Jeff and I will do this again, and we'll do it soon. Hi, Carmela.
I'm not really good at this, but
take your time.
Before we purchased a home in Palm Springs, our family would come out here every summer. And I have a large family. We have 6 grandchildren, and you know, the son-in-laws, the daughter-in-laws. It's just, there's a big family. And if we weren't able to rent a vacation rental, we probably couldn't have taken all those trips. And those trips were great for us. We love Palm Springs. We love the mountains. We love the hiking. And that was a time for us to bond and really be together. And because of that, that led us to buy a home here. We don't live here full time yet because that's our goal, is to retire here. But as I've had our home, I've met my neighbors, and you know, we've talked, and we have rented part-time. And through that home, I have met the people who work for the housekeeping crew, and I've met the pool people, and I've met the landscapers, and I've met the receptionists, and all those people. It breaks my heart, because if it goes through, those people won't have employment. So not only will the city lose immense amount of money because you don't get the revenue, you're going to have an unemployment crisis. So it breaks my heart to see that this is happening. I haven't been here 26, 50 years like everyone else, but I love Palm Springs, and I want to be a part of this community. And like I said, that's our goal. But I don't want to see all those people that I've met, kind and good and hardworking people, lose their jobs. And I don't want to see the city lose all that revenue. And I think, as someone said earlier, the answer is probably not banning the vacation rentals, because I don't think that's going to solve the problem. As I've been told, the compliance department is a great thing, and it was doing a great job. So I just hope that all the people that I have grown to really care about will all still be employed, and they'll all still have, you know, a job and somewhere to call their home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Julie, you're up.
Hi.
Yeah, and guys, we'll go ahead. We only have, well, we have about 10 questions left, and if we can ask you to move quickly, we'll try to get through every one of these so no one gets left out, okay?
Hi, I'm Julie, PS Organica. I just wanted to thank you for this forum. I think you guys take a lot of crap, and you know, it's very difficult, and I want to thank the staff for doing what they do. Ed, I want to put a little booth in the back, because I think a lot of these people need me. CBD oil or marijuana. I can really mellow out the crowd.
Oh my God, Dr. Reddy, do we have enough council members in this room to make a decision on that?
But, you know, I've been in the desert for 38 years, and I have to tell you that I remember when storefronts were crying that they weren't making enough money, that summer times were horrible, and now everybody is beaming. The energy here is great. People are having a fun time, and you can never have enough people, because if they can't stay in Palm Springs, we do have Palm Desert, we do have nice hotels in Cathedral City. We can share it with everybody else. And I just wanted to add to the people that please help the homeless. We need food for Fine Food Bank. We need Well of the Desert needs food. So instead of arguing about silly little things, I think it's important that everybody bring food to the homeless shelters. You can also bring them to my store, and we take it down to them. So we take in food, everything else. So that's all I wanted to say, is thank you very much for everything.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you very much. Jeffrey Bernstein. Thank you all for moving quickly now.
Thank you, Councilman Kors and Mayor Pro Tem Roberts. I wasn't going to say something on Measure C, but I just wanted to mention quickly that my husband and I came here. We did 2 vacation rentals. The third time we came and bought a house. We're full-time year-round residents. We opened 2 businesses here. We're not in the vacation rental business, but our business and the employment of our 20 employees depends on vacation rentals. But that was my question. My question was, you guys, the council spends a lot of time doing these events and other events and a lot of stuff that's going on. It seems that it's very much a full-time job. and
Yeah.
more so in the past few years, but it's still deemed a part-time job and you're paid as a part-time job. So my question is, what would it take to make these full-time jobs, which might also open it up to other people who couldn't afford to work full-time for a part-time pay? Thank you.
Well, you want to take this, or, you know, the truth is, we can change it. It's part of the charter and how we're paid. And, you know, you're right. We put as much into this as we want to. You're right. We are blessed with colleagues and a staff that all works overtime. You know, there are people who don't love that our staff works 4 days instead of 5 days, but they work the full hours. I can assure you, most of them are still working on Friday, so now they're just working more than ever. And we all work out of pure passion for the job. Should there be more pay for council members? That's really something that we should probably talk more about. We can't do that for ourselves, but we can vote it in for future councils. And you know, Jeffrey, it's probably something we should talk about, because we do work hard, and as this city has grown, and as our issues have grown in all cities, and because of the extra work that we're putting in, it's probably something we need to look at. This can be, and probably should be, a full-time career. I can tell you that for those of us who still work, it's really hard to carry on a career and do this job. Most of us are retired on the council, but there's some of us who are not, and it's very, very difficult. So, Dr. Reddy, put that on our list. It's probably something that's due for us to talk about at some point and soon.
And it is something that has been talked about through the government reform working group of the task force, and is being discussed, because the question is if and when we move to 5 districts, so we don't have 5 people responding to everything, and then sending it to different staff because we can't all talk about it. Will that lessen the workload or not? But these are things we're talking about, because in trying to increase diversity in all ways, you know, having someone who's in their early 30s has a full-time law career doing this job, it's a lot, right? And I think if I had to do that now, I couldn't. And I started with another half-time job that I couldn't keep. So it really does limit who can be on council, because you have to be able to afford not to really be making a living through the council work. So it's a very good point.
Yeah, thank you. Again, we love these forums because things come up. We're always so overwhelmed with things we have to work on, and it really helps when you bring these things up. Don Schultz, are you still here? We lost Don. Stephen Wibben, are you still here? We're losing him. Eduardo Welter. No? Bruce Hoban, did you stay? Oh yeah, Bruce would never leave us. Hi, Bruce.
We'll time Bruce.
And after Bruce's bill, I think it's Stutz or Stetz.
Yes,
Stets. So if you're here, Bill, bear with us.
So, Councilman Roberts, you've done it again. You've mispronounced my last name. I know that looks like an H as in Hoban, but it's really an N for no ban.
Sorry,
just had to.
Whoa, Dr. Reddy, I didn't see that coming.
I want to make a quick comment first and then ask a question. The comment is to everybody about changing neighborhoods. The U.S. Census in 2010, 2000, 2010, 2015, okay, has always showed that our residences here are comprised of 64% of people who either rent or live in that house, and 36% where this is not their primary house. So we have one of the highest of the tourist cities anywhere in California. So this concept somehow that if we get rid of STRs, we're going to have 100% occupied homes in the town is just not a fact. And the census is the census. It's not a survey. It's not a sample taken by the city. It has just been a part of the way Palm Springs is. What I'd really like to do is talk about Measure C for 1 second and its impact on the finances. So we had our first preliminary look at the budget last week. In that, there are 3 options. 1, we can cut 8% across all departments. 2, We could not touch ambulance, police, and firemen, and we would have to cut 13% all out of the other departments. Finally, there's an itemized list, and we could also do a combination of all of the above. But on that itemized list is taking our no-kill animal shelter and turning it back to the county, which is not a no-kill facility. We could take money out of the homeless programs, and there was some money set aside potentially to take it out of homelessness, okay? We could give the library back to the county. The list goes on and on and on, okay? Now, I'm not saying that's what the council will do. The council will have to do something with some combination of those options. So my question is really to Dr. Reddy, if you don't mind, which is, you know, you're one of the few people, because you've been here and worked so hard for so long, you were here in the economic turndown in 2008 and 2009, okay? How did that impact affect the city, affect the employees, okay? I know there are employees working Saturdays and Fridays and Sundays, because I get email, and that's not Monday through Friday. So what happened back then? That we can talk about, because we're not projecting anything.
Well, I would just in summary fashion note that it was a very difficult time. We probably lost close to about 70 employees, and you know, we were dealing with potentially, you know, roughly a $8 million deficit then.
And how long did it take, you think, before they, if you don't mind, one more, how long did it take to come out of that again?
Well, we never fully have staffed back up to that same. It certainly changed the way we've done services. Measure D has helped, and we're moving, like for example, we just did an additional 4 police officers and 6 firefighter paramedics, getting us back to where we need to be. You know, those are all good steps in the right direction. Obviously, our budget is very sensitive to losses of revenue. And you know, if we lose the additional, you know, $7-8 million in hotel tax, TOT tax, that'll have a significant impact.
I learned something new. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Bill Stetz, are you still here? We lost Bill. How about David Feltman? Bruce, you stayed and David walked. What do you know? Eric Redder, are you still here? Yes. Okay. Come on up.
Hey there, I'm Eric. I'm a full-time resident in Palm Springs, and I live in the Racket Club Estates. So first of all, I'd like to say to the ladies, if you can't call the cops, or if you do and they're not there, and you call the enforcement officers and they don't arrive, I'd love to give you my number tonight. And if you ever feel unsafe, as a vacation rental owner that's also a resident here, more than happy to come by and help you sort it out, knock on a door, just be your neighbor. I am a neighbor for my neighborhood, and I am a vacation rental owner. And I actually do mean that. You can please come get my number. So my question, I'd like to know, is it true next year's budget is currently not including potential raises for all the city staff, since their 4-year contract expires at the end of this June? And how much more will this impact the budget that apparently has little room for any cuts? And that's if we don't ban vacation rentals.
So just say that until we go through the union negotiations, we don't know what salaries are going to be. So it would just be a guess at this point. But obviously, you know, that will impact the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Is Mickey Brown still here? John Delgado. Ivan Arnold. Hi, Ivan, come on down. Thanks for staying. Oh yeah, all right, sorry, John, I think John was ahead of you. Hang in there.
Right. Well, you know, it's one thing about this city of Palm Springs, it's a very colorful city, as we've seen. You know, there are a lot of the vacation rental people who actually follow the rules, and it's like when we got hit with that increase in the permit fees and such, I mean, we went along with it. You know, this is what you want to do, All right, we abide by it. We pay the TOT tax. We do everything along the lines. Vet people before they come to our places, etc. But let me just real quickly read this. A number of rental days in the last 48 months. Average daily rent, including the cash receipts, journal required by something. List all the receipts charged, including but not limited to no-show fee, pet fee, cleaning fee. What I'm reading is this revised audit letter for the TOT, the TOT audit. Bank statements, credit card merchant statements, and 1099s related to the rental property, copies of IRS Schedule C and or Schedule E, recreation or excerpts of specific line items are acceptable. Detailed home rental schedule, detail which hosting sites your property is listed with, i.e. Airbnb, Flipkey, VRBO. All these things that they're requiring us to provide, it seems very draconian for somebody who is actually following the guidelines and everything in Palm Springs. It just seems like this is just not good.
You're not the first to tell us that. Jeff, you want to respond? Or Eddie, you want to respond to this? Did you hear it? This is about the audit.
I heard the comment.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Eddy and I were talking about this topic earlier today, and I know that between the city manager's office and the finance department that we're very dedicated to ensuring the compliance of all parties in the city. You're indicating you are compliant, and I guess the audits are oriented toward keeping a level playing field and ensuring that level playing field. There is a burden associated with responding to the audit, and as a matter of policy, that's something that I think the city staff is looking at, but I don't want to speak for the city staff since I'm not the boss.
I want to say that there's a difference between burden and something being invasive. I mean, this seems really invasive when you're wanting all of my Schedule C taxes. I mean, really?
Well, maybe I can address that. There's a couple ways to approach it, but just quickly, what I would suggest is, we're geared towards, doing a full due diligence. And what I think what's happening in this case is, that maybe it's more than we need. What I would recommend, now that I see all these complaints coming in and issues being raised, is that, we need to do a certain level of due diligence. I think with a subcommittee and the finance department and some stakeholders, we all can agree on what is the criteria, what are the 3 or 4 things we need. Maybe it's not that list of 15, maybe we can do it with 3 or 4. If we see a problem, then we can go to the next step. So I think that would be a good exercise for the subcommittee, staff, and stakeholders to come to agreement on what is the level of due diligence and what would not be so burdensome.
David, I have absolutely no problem giving you the renters and what I've collected in fees and what I have paid in taxes. I have no problem doing that. But bank statements and all these other issues.
We get it. I think
it really is. I mean, put yourself in my position, in my shoes, as a business owner, having to do this. You would go crazy if you had to provide all this information to some third-party auditing staff.
I do want
to. You're not the IRS.
Yeah. Well, I would note that the information is confidential. That you have to have a comfort level, and we have to demonstrate that it is, and that we can do. But I do think that there's probably a universe of documents that are less burdensome that probably get us where we want to be. And again, I think the subcommittee, finance department, and the stakeholders sit down and come up with that list going forward. So I think if you could give us some time to do that, I think we may be able to find a nice solution.
Okay, so in giving you time to do that, I mean, am I still required to do this in that 45 days that is mandated from?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So as it stands, yes, but this issue has surfaced, so I'm going to get with staff and I'm going to look at it. This may be one of these situations where we want to extend it out to come to an agreement, but I just need to drill down to some of the details. But the goal obviously is not to make it too burdensome, but at the same time, a level of due diligence so we know the city is receiving the tax revenue it should.
Just as long as it's not so invasive. I don't mind due diligence. Invasiveness, I do mind.
In that regard, I do want to indicate that one of the members of the subcommittee who's here tonight Councilmember Coors and I had some dialogue about the confidentiality concerns because people had reached out to him. So immediately we took action in that respect. We amended the contract with the auditor, and there's now language there to protect the confidentiality of the documentation that we take from you. It's going to be up to Dr. Reddy and the subcommittee and the staff with respect to exactly what documents come in. But to the extent that they're confidential, the auditor has signed off, and actually it's on the City Council agenda for tomorrow night, an amendment to the audit contract.
So when do I start taking care of this?
Well, yeah, let's do this. What we'll do within the week, we will have a determination if we're going to extend this out. But I probably need at least a few days to look into it, because if we are going to change the process, it'll take a while to get the subcommittee together and for us to agree. So we may need to put some of these audits at least in advance, maybe. But let me get back to you within the next few days.
And how will this happen?
Well, what we can do is we will communicate to the stakeholders. We certainly have that list, but if I could have your name specifically and a number, I'd be happy to call you directly.
Absolutely. All right, thank you.
And Mr. Delgado, just one additional comment. There is an enforcement component, obviously, very strong one, in the existing ordinance. As the city prosecutor, I see that kind of up close and personal. You're a good operator, I have no doubt of that, and there are a lot of good operators. In fact, probably the vast majority of our operators are good ones. We have some that are not so good. And believe it or not, that was the reason for my comment on the level playing field. I know that that's important to the subcommittee. I've heard them tell me that. They want to make sure that when there are deficiencies that we identify them and we get after those people very aggressively so that we can make it a reward in a sense for operators like you who conform.
Yeah, because I tell you, this is punitive. You know, this feels punitive to me. You know.
Hey guys, I'm going to let you guys. This is turning into a private conversation.
Well,
John, you know,
thank you guys.
You're very welcome. We hear it. You know, I'm just going to say quickly, it's a very difficult line we're having to walk right now. Not everybody's going to be honest with us, and there's certain documentation that's required because you're probably telling us the truth, but not everybody is.
I get it, but not everybody here knows the degree to which they're asking.
Well,
and, it just
you're
seems
right.
Like it's not
so
right.
what we heard.
Okay,
so what we heard is Dr. Reddy saying we're willing to look at that to see if we can get the information we need and not be as an intensive. And you're not the only one. Right. Frankly, we didn't get to see this first, and this went out, and when we heard about it later. And unfortunately, that puts us in a position of not knowing what's going out. So this is one we know we have to look at. So this isn't going to fall off the table. We know we have to look at it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ivan, thank you for being so patient.
No problem. So the first thing that I want to say was when this thing broke out on vacation rentals a couple years ago, we had the meeting at City Hall. Everybody showed up in the pink, and I want to say that I think the two of you, when you held that meeting, I got a certain sense from you about your opinion on vacation rentals. I want to tell you that something must have happened to you guys through this process, because I really feel you being a lot more open and a lot more neutral. So I maybe nobody has said that, but I want to tell you that I've been on this issue. It's affects me because me and my family, we own 2 vacation rentals. Something seems different about you guys today than it did back then. I sat through this whole thing. You can see where the last men standing here and women standing. So I want to thank you for that. I think maybe now you represent more fully both sides than maybe when this thing broke out in the beginning. Thank you guys for that.
Thank you. I can only say for me, Ivan, you're probably seeing the long-term effects of no sleep and too much tequila.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good.
Ditto.
So really quickly, we talked about some of the punitive actions that are going on as a result of, if you don't have a permit and you try to rent your house, there's a $5,000 fee, right, for bad actors. But there's a whole other side of bad actor that hasn't been talked about that really has hit me personally. I own a house on Crescent, and you know where Crescent is, right? Yeah. And so what happened with me is I vacation rented my house, and my neighborhood, Vista Las Palmas, is ground zero for the fight in vacation rental, no vacation rentals. I'm not going to tell you who my neighbors are. You know who my neighbors are. That is ground zero. An article was written in the Desert Sun. They they talked about my house as being like the linchpin for vacation rentals. So here's what happened. My next door neighbor called the hotline 99 times. It was documented. Okay. 99 times, you guys, right? Yeah, you can talk to Amanda about this, okay? So that resulted in 4 citations as a result of the 99 calls. Of those 4, 3 of them were, they may have been citations. One was to my best friend who's a West Hollywood sheriff's detective. At that point in time, he had every right to be in my house. This is my best friend of 15 years. It was a non-citation. That would have pushed me below the limit. Okay, so I got suspended. I brought my attorney from Century City. We sat down in the arbitration with the retired judge. Seemed like a very neutral process. We presented our case, including the West Hollywood Sheriff's detective that's my best friend. The judge said he'd take it under consideration. 2 weeks later, he ruled. And he ruled against me. So I said, wow, this is odd, considering the thing about my buddy, the sheriff's detective. We should not have even been suspended. Okay, so when I got the ruling, I called the vacation rental board and I said, listen, I just want to know, how many of these appeals have there been? And they said there have been 13 appeals to date. And I said, of those 13 appeals, how many have the vacation rental owners won? And the answer was none. So it hit me in the face, right? Out of 13 sitting down with a retired judge of these appeals, not a single one had been won by a homeowner. And that struck me as being a bit of a kangaroo court. So this is, now, I'm going to finish up. I talked about bad actors. I'm coming back to bad actors. I was railroaded by my next door neighbor, okay? There's been nothing happening to my next door neighbor as a result of simply calling the hotline over and over. You have a $5,000 fee for somebody that rents a house without a permit. What are you doing for us, a homeowner who is being harassed and harangued by our neighbors? What's the penalty?
Well, there is one. Jeff will take one of those, but I'll take this one. So in the new ordinance, we took false calls very seriously. In fact, we're taking them as seriously as police take false calls. And there are going to be severe penalties for that.
Amazing.
And, if that's true, I am horrified to hear that we had 99 calls.
99 calls. Amanda can tell you.
So I can tell you that we have empowered our compliance department to create citations now for false calls, and we're taking that very seriously. And I don't know if you've issued any yet because it's relatively new. Boris or Suzanne, did you want to speak to that? Yeah. The head of our compliance department.
Hear me?
Yes.
We, Suzanne and myself, would create the weekly hotline report. We monitor who are individuals who call in. More than ever before, people identify themselves and reach out to individuals who call multiple occasions, and we put them on notice. And so far that has worked. We have not had a need to issue a citation.
What is the dollar amount?
The citation is a $500 amount.
$500 per incident, per call?
It's $500 if there's a false call on a property.
Okay, great. My suggestion is, there used to be this notion of an anonymous caller. There can't be anonymous callers anymore.
It's done. We ended that because we realized the only way we could really enforce is by asking people to, it's a confidential request for identity. And without them, if they're unwilling to do that, well, Boris, you want to finish that?
That is correct. The hotline will take a call if you call anonymously. The pattern that has been seen with the new hotline for the last year, 9 out of 10 callers have identified themselves and give us their information.
We're asking for it now.
And we're asking for them, and their information does stay confidential. Like I said, we evaluate on a weekly basis the calls that come in, and we look at the calls on what properties are being made to be able to address these kinds of concerns.
And they're finding patterns, Ivan. They know who the false callers are. they've gotten really good at ferreting them out, and they're now actively reaching out to the false callers and letting them know that they're onto it and that they're riding the line now for
Is
citations.
that the case, really?
I sent a letter today.
Oh, this is good news.
We're on it.
Yeah, this is good news. Okay, yeah.
Oh, and Jeff will answer the second question.
Yeah, just quickly on appeals is before staff will bring a case, I mean, there is so much work that goes into it. We have the city attorney as a former prosecutor with the county, and so by the time a case is brought, they have reviewed everything, so they're very confident. A lot of things, we don't bring cases because they feel there's not enough evidence, or they reach an agreement with the homeowner to make something work. So the only cases that end up going forward are the ones they think are the strongest.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for eliminating this. I just want to say one more thing.
Very quickly, yeah.
My wife is watching me at home. I just wanted to say hi, honey.
Your wife's probably gone to bed. Okay, so we have Julie and Jesse, and then Joy Meredith. So Julie K. Rupp, are you still here?
I am.
Okay.
Wonderful. Come on up.
I know all of you.
You sure do.
Anyway, yeah, I've been a 37-year I've been a 37-year resident, and I've been on both sides of the fence. Our city did a lot too late. I know how much work you've done. I know what Boris has done. We did a lot too late. So 1 year ago, this all went into effect. But let's continue to work with our city and our vacation rental compliance departments. They're there for all residents. And those who want to ban short-term vacation rentals enjoy the services that the short-term vacation rentals provide. We need to ask our neighbors to vote no on C, ask everyone for their vote no. I've been a very involved resident of our city. My 2 UCLA children have over 2,000 community service hours with the Park and Rec Department. We have been disturbed by our neighbor's vacation rental for 15 years. And recently, we've been woken up in the middle of the night every week when I'm working, when my children were in our public schools. Recently at 1 a.m., our family at that vacation rental was screaming and yelling in the pool. 1 a.m. woke me up out of bed. But it's not against the vacation rental ordinance decibel level. I brought that to Boris. He said, come forward. I said, it's not up to me. If the city ordinance decibel level is at 10 o'clock, 2 points before 10 o'clock, we need to change that city ordinance. Also, what I'm asking in this vacation rental ordinance is not indoor voices after 10. I recently became a vacation rental. I have a 6-bedroom home. And my vacation rental people are asked to be inside after 10. What is so hard? All vacation rental owners need to ask their guests to be inside at 10 or be outside silent, not with whatever noise. I live in the canyon, noise travels. So, this is what I have to say. I rented out for Coachella. My first Coachella, my guests were respectful, decent, wonderful guests in my home. My other neighbors were so happy, complimented me on how I vet my people that stay. But there was a witch hunt for Coachella. We were issued a $500 citation for a 7th car when I'm allowed 6. They read the Good Neighbor brochure, they all signed, but somebody had to bring somebody back to my home at night, and at 2 o'clock, the car was gone by 4, but there was a witch hunt on the yes for C. And because of that, I was on the fence. My children and I were not going to vote, but we're going to vote no. So I'm asking that after 10, all vacation rentals, just ask all the activity to be indoors. Change that, please. The decibel levels, you took away from the police department the decibel level readers, and it's just ridiculous because the way the ordinance is, they have to be on my property for a half hour to do this and this and this, and my neighbor has been getting away with it for 15 years. Thank you for the no what do you call that, amplified music outdoors, that's perfect, you know, but we need to go indoors after 10. Us residents who have had problems, we're raising our kids, we're working hard, you know, so if we could do something about that, change the way the Good Neighbor brochure reads. I mean, I know you got to go on both sides, but anyway, I feel, number 3. Okay, so with that, because the haters, I have neighbors who've always been haters, will never be happy and only want neighborhoods for neighborhoods. Yes on C are on a witch hunt, and because of that, my children and I will vote no. I have gathered 7 more no votes from my banker, my doctor, my friends, who agree that no neighbors should gang up, witch hunt against other neighbors, and tell us what we can do with our properties. Please vote no on C.
Okay, Jesse.
How about a new subject?
Thank you.
I bought my house in '99, very depressed real estate market back then, and this town was still in a 50, 60-year slide of many bad years. I looked at over 100 houses, and I was really tired of looking at houses, and I finally found one that was acceptable, but it had those damn telephone poles. I bought it, it's my fault, but then the city voters imposed a 1% sales tax to improve the look of the city. I thought, hey, put the telephone poles underground. And as David knows, I showed up at one of the meetings that this group has after a half a year or a year to ask because when are they going to put the telephone poles underground, and they wouldn't answer me, but they said, just to let you know, we don't have any plans for it. So that's one of my questions. We keep saying this is a world-class city, but I would like to see the telephone poles underground. The second point, I'll just make all my points and I'll let you talk about it. And then the second point is also one thing that we're lacking here in Palm Springs is internet speed. I'm a cable cutter. I've been that way for many years, and I can barely pull 70 at my house down and 10 up. And I have a business in town. I think they just, actually at my house, they just bumped it up to 120. And at my business downtown, I think now they just bumped it to 70, but only 20 up. Where in Romania, I was talking to my friend today, and that's a second world country, very poor country. They have 1,000 down, 1,000 up for $27 a month. And they're 4th in the world in 2015 behind Germany, South Korea, and Japan. That was in 2015. I do know that SoftBank, they bought Sprint years ago, and now they're selling it. But that guy's from South Korea, and he did the fastest internet at the world at the time there. And he does them with towers, so it's all wireless. And I always thought Palm Springs would be a great test city for America because we get a lot of world-renowned people that would come here and see it, and maybe we could approach SoftBank, and maybe they would be willing to do something with us where we could get instant high-speed internet everywhere. Let's see. Okay. And then regarding the rentals, when I bought my house, the only thing I heard at night was, wind and birds. And now I have 8 rentals around me. And I have the one on my back wall is probably the rental from hell. I've called the police once, maybe a year ago. And then just the other day I called them, and then now they told me about the vacation rental police. So I called them, and they came out pretty quick. But by then it had calmed down, but they had their little meter, and they said, no, we still get it. They're breaking the rules. And I had recorded. They had the mariachi band, the guy with the trumpet, and guitars. I've also had people, when I called the police a year ago or 2 years ago, people with a PA system. And then we get hey, Jimmy, do a cannonball at 3 in the morning, and it wakes me up, and it scares my animals. My animals don't want to go outside because that's the door they like to go out of, and right there is the wall with the pool and the hedges. So I know the rules that you suggest, and is there, like in hotels in the pool area, you'll see signs warning no lifeguard. Can they have like rules in the patio area where the people congregate about the noise levels, have to cut at certain times and blah, blah, blah? I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I'll just quickly say, with respect to the recommendations or suggestions that you're all making about changes to the ordinance, we take those very seriously, about going inside after 10 or requiring more signage. We're recording those, and we will definitely consider those. Very quickly on undergrounding, you made a comment about our Measure J funds that were created through the tax increase. So those funds are specifically earmarked for infrastructure that the city owns. The city doesn't own the telephone poles. So undergrounding districts have to be driven neighborhood by neighborhood or individual by individual. And the why you see them come down in some places and why they never come down is simply because one neighborhood or one neighbor created what's called an undergrounding district. You work with the utilities. There's 2 or 3 utilities running on those poles. It's a big deal. It takes a lot of time and it's very expensive, but it happens. Some cities have collected the money and done it. It's millions and millions and millions of dollars. And along with that, even when a city has taken the money to do, or created the funding to do that, then you have what's called laterals, and that's going through people's properties to tie them into the new system. It's very, very complicated, but if it's something that you care about, I can tell you that Mr. Marcus, who just ran out of the room, he is a guy who can explain that process to you, and if you call and ask for Mr. Marcus, he can tell you what's involved with that. I'm going to tell you frankly, in the things that we have to accomplish now and with the funding that we have in trying to deal with the homeless and some of the affordable housing and things, that's going to be lower priority to us. Was there one that you wanted to hit? Okay. I think we nailed it. And Joy Meredith, we're open to it. Yeah. We agree. Again,
yes. I think figuring out what we can do, and we've talked about it with staff, but it's something we should follow up on.
We've talked about this a lot. We only have so much control, but I'm telling you, we do care about that. Joy Meredith deserves a round of applause. She's the last question. Hi, Joy.
Hi. So a couple of things. Very quickly, though. I did want to tell you that many years ago, the city council and mayor were receiving $600 a month and $800 a month. And Wendy Busick-Cohen and I were the only 2 citizens that spoke in support of raising it to what it is now. So you're welcome for that, too.
Thank you. My dry cleaner thanks you.
Well, because that was so ridiculous at that time to really try to get qualified people onto council. So I did want to touch super briefly on vacation rentals, just because I think that one of the things that a lot of citizens aren't really understanding that I read on social media is that they have these great suggestions about changes that they want to see made to the ordinance, but they believe that the best way to do that is to vote no. I mean, is to vote yes, which of course makes no sense whatsoever, because once it's banned, it's banned, and there won't be a discussion anymore. There won't be changes to be made, and I think that a lot of people are missing that point a lot. So what I actually came here to speak about tonight, though, was something that I have noticed is happening a lot lately, is that the city council subcommittees, when they meet, and I know that it is legal because I already asked about it because I thought surely it couldn't be, that there is only 24 hours notice given for these meetings. Now, I'm guessing that the city council members know about it before 24 hours. You have to fit it into your schedule. Sometimes you might not. But as somebody that's trying to run 2 businesses, and I'm on a board or 2 here and there, a couple committees, couple different things. It's very hard for me to attend the meetings when when I really don't know that these meetings are coming up, and I'm sure other people would want to attend them as well, I thought that there would be some urgency required to do the 24-hour notice, but it has been explained to me that it's not. But I don't really recall this happening this way previously. So if there is any way, whenever you can at least, to just give more notice, it would be really helpful for people to attend those meetings.
We hear you, and there are reasons sometimes. We're having a lot more subcommittee meetings, and we have a lot more subcommittees because, as you of all people know, Joy, we now have many more issues than we once did. Yes. And we're now dealing with issues that never got dealt with before. And literally our calendar, we're running. Our calendar is moving so fast now that sometimes we can't even get more timing than that. But it is something that others have brought up. Yeah. It is something we would like, and it's something we hear you on, and we're going to look at that. And Dr. Reddy, you know, if we need to agendize that at some point, that would be great too, and talk about how we can do that. It's, you know, we take on more than we really should, and that's because we have a city manager who's superhuman, and and he hires a staff that's superhuman. Yeah. But the reality is, we're working double time these days.
But one thing I think that we, for example, the Economic Development Business Retention Subcommittee is now setting a standard monthly time, second Tuesday, 5:30, and that's what we're, you know, I want to do on some more of our standing subcommittees, so people know when they are, especially when on a particular issue like that. But we did ask, in fact, we're delaying one meeting, as I mentioned earlier, because we want to make sure people had the ordinance to review a week before the meeting. So I do think it's a good idea, and I think we can all make an effort to try and get those scheduled and out sooner.
We'll do it where we can.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good idea.
Well, thank you for listening. I
no,
appreciate
absolutely.
it. Thank you.
Anytime.
So,
I've never heard of that, but I'll certainly check with our staff on it. If that's the case, Tricia, we'll use it for that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, no, mine too. I live not far from you.
Yeah. No.
So anyway, folks, thank you.
Thank you for staying through, and staff, thank you all.
And thanks to our amazing staff who we kept an extra hour even more. So thank you all for staying. And we promise to do this again in the coming months.
Thank you.